Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RPG Limit Break 2025 games schedule discussion event discussion stream. I'm going to be I'm
Discussion.
GhostKumo. I'm GhostKumo, and I'm joined by three of my good friends here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce all yourselves?
Alphabetical order. Ghoul, go first.
Hey, I'm cool. It's been a little while since I've actually been on the channel for stuff. Big move, lots of stuff going on, but super, super excited to be chatting about some awesome RPGs that y'all are going to get very familiar with in a couple months.
Yeah, massive shouts to Ghoul for being here at absolute butt cheeks in the morning. It's great. We are representing 4 very different time zones here in the call, so heck yeah. I'm spikevegeta, and I also haven't been on the channel in a little while, but very, very excited to talk about what looks like an awesome RPG Limit Break 2025 schedule for you all today. Looks like the Games Committee put together a fantastic set of games.
And hello there, folks. My name is TinyTim78. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to be here with such exalted company. And I'm really looking forward to doing this today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We do hope you enjoy what we've got to talk about today.
Absolutely. So really quick, just to kind of give a bit of a rundown of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to just start off giving kind of some opening comments after we've all introduced ourselves. As usual, we're going to go through the runs for about the first half of the marathon, so up until this stuff scheduled till Wednesday. We're going to have a very brief intermission with two of our role directors who help out with volunteering. We have Bob, the Ninja Goldfish, who is our community lead head guy and has been for a while, and then Ashton, who's also running our stream in the background here. We'll be talking a bit about tech volunteers. We still have volunteer spots open, so if you go to rpglimitbreak.com and click the volunteer button at the top of the website, you will have access to our volunteer form. If you're interested in submitting, we definitely really appreciate it, and we definitely, if you're interested in getting any volunteering experience with the marathon, we highly suggest checking that out. We have plenty of department heads who are more than willing to teach you on how to do anything. So if you've ever been interested in volunteering for an event, but you're kind of afraid because you're afraid that you press the wrong dial and the whole stream will go down, we have tech people for that who will teach you exactly what you need to know. It's not nearly as intimidating a thing as it might sound, and they can just help you through it. We got a lot of people on site who are there to make sure that the stream is going. But with that said, so this has been kind of an interesting RPG Limit Break kind of going into. So we're actually going into our 10th anniversary marathon. Although the event has not technically been held every single year because the first 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic kind of pushed us to doing, the Questing for Glory, Hope and Healing events for our charity marathon that year. We've been back to in-person events since 2022. And this is kind of, coming around to it, where there's a lot of runs that I noticed in this particular marathon that have been in Limit Break in the past, but they haven't been in the event in a very long time. And we'll get to that once we, right off the bat when we start with our opener here. Our owner as well.
I was like, wait, we have someone who owns this?
Okay, so the owner of RPG Limit Break is also, I think, closing the marathon for the first time since the first event. So that
co-owner, but yeah.
Yes, co-owner. But we'll get to him when we get to the end of the game schedule. So Ghoul, as somebody who's been with me on our prediction shows and now doing these streams for a few years, is there anything that you kind of wanted to comment on about with the schedule this year?
I mean, it's a really exciting schedule. I think that there's a lot of really cool things that I'm excited to see this year. So obviously we have the big move from Salt Lake City to Denver, which I think is really cool. There's a lot of nice things about that. It's a lot cheaper for flights to go there. Unfortunately, still very expensive for me now, but I know that Denver's a much easier airport hub to get in and out of. But there's a really good mix of runs this year from stuff that we've seen before, but not in a long time, as GK mentioned. There's some new stuff. There's always the classic, I hadn't seen this game before. Let me do some research for the event. And you go, I kind of want to play this game. Like those type of things. It's always like one of the best parts about doing these, schedule talk shows is you kind of just get to learn a lot about so many different games. And I think that like the years of doing this have given us a pretty good appreciation for what these runs are and what they can be and just how much fun these schedules really are. And I think this is a fantastic schedule. Like I really did enjoy the research we did for this.
Yep. Spike.
Yeah, probably. I mean, on top of everything that Ghoul is saying right there, I've always had this saying when it comes to just speedruns in general, not just RPG Limit Break or GDQ or anything else, that if there is a game on this schedule, obviously a lot of people are going to know the Mario and Luigi's, the Final Fantasies, the entirety of the Chrono series, yada, yada, Kingdom Hearts. If there's a game on here that you feel like you've never heard of, I've never heard of this game once in my life, those are actually a lot of times the runs you got to check them out because they earned their way in through being like having a lot of banger tech to them, maybe just a gorgeous soundtrack, really, really good commentary to go with it. It had to find other ways to sneak into a schedule like this that isn't just, it's a massive name and it's going to generate a lot of donations. Yeah, this schedule looks absolutely fantastic. Like you said, a really, really good mix of new stuff with things that have kind of almost that yearbook style of the last 10 years of RPG lit breaks. And one thing also to notice here, if you're someone who's like, I don't know what these runs are, I feel like there's a ton of like 1 to 2, like 30-minute to 2-hour runs on the schedule. Might just leave it on in the background, watch it a little bit more closely and say, hey, these are really, really easy runs to get into, to appreciate. There's a ton of that sort of stuff on the schedule. So yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of personal bias on this schedule as well. A few games we'll get to, but make sure to check it out. Fantastically put together.
I mean, even on top of that, last year, I don't know if you guys realize this, kind of a banger year for RPGs. We have a lot of really new video games in here as well. And all of them are fantastic speedruns as well. It's funny when you look at the schedule and go, oh, that came out last year, didn't it? Oh, that came out last year, didn't it? And you go, wow, there's a lot of really good games that came out last year. And you go, oh, that's why they're in the marathon too, and they make for good runs too. So
2024 had multiple massive RPGs nominated for Game of the Year through multiple different outlets that we'll get to here. That might also right off the printing room floor is going to be part of the schedule. So very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've just got to add at this point. Yeah, sorry guys. I've just got to add at this point that counterpoint to that, we've also got some fantastic retro titles. We've got the Dawn of Time. We've got consoles that you have not seen. We have got some really, really interesting stuff. And honestly, that appeals to me as a more mature connoisseur of speedrunning. And honestly, please, I appreciate how much, first of all, everybody's submissions. I mean, the amount of submissions, again, was absolutely fantastic. It's always good to see that RPG Limit Break attracts so many different types of runners, so many different types of RPGs. I mean, there's always the age-old debate of what is an RPG, of course. So, I mean, as long as it's a good run and it's RPG, then we'll look at it. And I have to say, it's been fantastic to look at the schedule and to learn about some of these games, as Spike was saying.
Yeah, to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. So Ghoul and myself and another one of our friends this time, we all did a kind of behind the scenes prediction sheet because we're not on the games committee, so we don't get to see like the conversations that the games committee has on like why we want to take this or that. So sometimes we just kind of place our own little personal wagers, and we used to do a show where we would predict the games list live for everybody. We're staff now, so it's like the optics on doing that are a little bit different, but we kind of still like to do it on the side. And what that means is that we end up checking out a whole bunch of these runs. So we saw some of these runs before they got in and we're like, this would be a really like surprise cool thing to get in. And then they got in. But even some of the things that didn't, some of those ended up on the backups list. And we were like, yeah, this was definitely a run that it deserved a good look. And, it got a good enough look to get on the backup. And even some of the stuff that doesn't get in, we're just like, people put a lot of their hard work and passion into these RPGs, and there's a lot of great speed runs. So, yeah, I'm really excited for the schedule, and you could put up like probably 3-4 quality RPG Limit Break schedules off of just the set of submissions that we get. So, But without further ado, we're running on the opening here. Let's get to our first run of the marathon. So starting off as the opener for Sunday, May 18th of this year, we have Valkyria Chronicles, which, as mentioned, we haven't had this game since the very first limit break. It's been kind of on, it's like kind of been around the schedule on the backups list before, but now we're actually getting it in. And the runner, who's showing up in chat a little bit here, our good friend PX, who will be doing the run for this PC version. It's come down quite a bit. I want to say it was like 2.5 hours in like 2015 when it was last run. So Ghoul, you being probably the most familiar here, if you wanted to talk a little bit about this run, we do have a video clip we want to show you of some of this because we have some video clips for certain runs as well.
Yeah, so to me, Valkyria Chronicles is like one of the coolest strategy RPGs, speed runs just ever. I mean, it's one of the best strategy RPGs just of all time in general. I mean, if you haven't ever seen this game, it's gorgeous. It's got this like really beautiful cell shaded, like paper book style to it. But like, so the way this game ends up playing out in a speedrun though is really cool because, you know, casually you're going to move all your units one by one. They're going to all kind of like do it. But in a speedrun, the balance completely shifts. You don't use shock troopers almost at all because the movement speed on them is slower, their attacks are slower. And instead, you start utilizing all these little aspects that like are in the game, but people don't realize are good until you actually watch the speedrun and go, oh my god, that's what that did? There's no way that that's what that did. You have these situations where you have Alicia running and there's just bullets flying left and right, and she's like, her health bar is going down like a pixel every time she gets hit, and she just doesn't care. She gets to the end. There's an enemy inside of a base surrounded by sandbags, and you got to claim the base, but you can't know that there's an enemy in it. So what do? Well, you don't take the enemy out. You throw a grenade in and knock the enemy over the little wall so that there's no enemies in the base to take control of it. That works. The enemies all run away because they're scared after you do that. It's glorious.
Sure.
Yeah, so Valkyria Chronicles is kind of unique as a strategy RPG in that it you do take your turns, but your turns are like a sort of sequence in like a third-person shooter type game. So I'm going to pull up actually a clip here so I have my screen capture. Oopsies. Here we go. So PX sent me this. Unfortunately, I don't think audio is coming through. But yeah, so just you kind of just send Alicia in on like a death, like it looks like she has a death wish. And you just kind of channel your health here. So the idea is you have to capture a point at the end of the map, and she's just gonna get absolutely mollywopped by bullets, but not actually take hardly any damage. So just skip to the enemy turn. Enemy's not really acting much, so he's got a buildup of several turns, going to issue a defense order, which is gonna reduce the amount of damage that you take, and then the twist to this particular fight is pretty interesting. PX has told me like about a third of the map to do something like this. There is considerably more variety just because there's several different things you have to do. Some maps you have to destroy certain objects. Some maps you have to, do like a lot more aggression. But anyways, so yeah, every one of those little indicators over her, like every one of those little lights beaming towards Alicia here is just like bullets. So she's just getting absolutely just gunned down.
Absolute Arnold Schwarzenegger energy here. Oh my God.
Yep.
Oh man, it is like you see this and you play this game casually. This is one of the hardest like RP, like not even just like strategy RPGs. One of the hardest games. Like, the difficulty spike from Chapter 6 onwards is ludicrously difficult. And then you see the game just literally destroyed like this. And, like, you know, like, nobody realize like, you just don't know orders are this broken casually because they're using the most valuable resource in the game, which is turns. But it turns out, like, they really did make them, like, they had to nerf them in later games because they were so overpowered in this game. It's wild to watch.
So here he's shooting a grenade behind the enemy that's near the capture point to just barely knock him over the wall, which means because if enemies are on the capture point, you can't capture it. But this strat is hilarious. So he's gonna position Alicia right between this enemy and the tank, and the tank is like auto firing here.
Oh
and
no.
the friendly fire is on. So the tank just wipes the guy out. She can occupy the mission and done. just no shots fired. All the damage was self-inflicted. I love just the silliness of this run, and like Valkyria Chronicles is kind of a silly game at times, so it's kind of awesome like that.
I've done like so much like with the series and rooting it, and like some of the stuff that ends up being good is just wild stuff like that. I'm so excited to see this game again in the marathon.
Yeah,
I've always been a defender that a lot of times the best speed games are the ones that look nothing like you did casually. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of people, it wasn't just, the Terminator running through, enemy bases and whatnot, and then getting friendly fire to do the work for them.
Yeah. So moving on to our second game of the marathon, we have something of an RPG limit break staple. This is Phantasy Star 4, any % no major glitches, run by the one, the only Big Fong Balls. So this game has seen quite a few improvements to improve consistency and shave off time over the years. But every run of this game, I swear, like something just kind of happens that puts you on edge. Last time you ran this for, I think the last time you ran no major glitches on the channel was for one of our Questing for Glory events. And I think he tried to run away in the final boss, wasting a turn and nearly wiped in a fight where it's like, you have to constantly keep everything up. And he didn't get punished for it. And it was like I don't think I've ever heard Bick it sounded like his soul escaped his body the moment that he did that. This game produces all kinds of fire drills every time you run it, so it's going to be an exciting run. Vic always does a good job with performance and commentary.
Yep.
And this is one of the best, Genesis RPGs, one of the classic Genesis RPGs, and it's got a lot of really cool tech with how you can combine your skills to use specials, and then there's also the macro system, which speedrunners make really interesting use of that I think a lot of people didn't quite realize you could make this kind of use out of the macros to make the game do this. So just a really cool route, really cool run, and a really cool game.
Yeah, just to add there, I had the pleasure of interviewing Bick in 2023, and absolute cracker, absolute, very, very entertaining, fantastic runner. This one would be will be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Has some great emotes after him as well.
we don't need to talk about those yet.
We don't need just, emotes are great. That's all you need to know. That's good.
Yes. And so moving on to our third game, we have Cassette Beasts by Alice Rujasu, who will be making their debut at the in-person event after having previously done a run for 2022, one of our remote runs. I'll let you talk a bit more about this one, Tim.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this one's really, really different, really, really interesting. It's just by sort of looking at it here, you might not know exactly what it's about, but it's a Pokemon-inspired RPG, relatively new, and it's from the makers of Leonard's Inception as well. And it's got very, very distinctive graphics and style. I mean, really, really distinctive. If you think about Pokemon, but with a sort of third-person view with more of a sort of background. It's difficult. Should really have put a picture up. But it's also got the interface is all cassette-based, as the name suggests. So it's got really, really distinctive graphics. Rajusu previously ran Dungeons & Dragons Warriors of the Eternal Sun at 2022. And they'll be running the any % seeded category for this one, which is the main story without allowing any debug mode. So you'll get to see the majority of the run here. We've also got some glitches to show off, and something I really, really appreciate, and I'm sure everybody in chat will appreciate, there is a incentive to wear the cat ears. So we must be seeing those cat ears. I'm sorry, folks. We've got to be getting the cat ears. They'll make the run even better. I have to say, I really, really enjoy the cassette-based theme of this one. I think it's going to be really, really different. Really, really something quite special. If you like the Pokemon style sort of games, be sure to check this one out. It will be an absolute fantastic run.
I may or may not like a thing or two about Pokemon. I'm looking forward to it. I was kind of
really
excited to see this one because, like, I thought that I was kind of surprised this one hadn't been in the event because there was
It's
definitely
amazing.
like a surge of runs for it for a couple of years after it came out. But I'm happy to see it actually getting submitted. And
And as Joe Wolf has just pointed out in chat, as Joe Wolf has just pointed out, amazing OST as well. Really good music on this.
I was going to point out with the cat ears. That was it. So
One
one of the things that's great about
we need like the actual like cat ear headset as well. If the
Oh, to go with it? Oh, yeah.
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 Get the
One of the
IRL
things-
cat ears to match.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about Limit Break is all the cosmetic incentives that we get for these things. There's all kinds of varieties of incentives, but the cosmetics ones are always fun. Like 2 years ago, we had East 9, and it was like turn your weapon into a skewer, and I was like, please get this one met, and we did, and that was awesome. All right, so our next game we're going to talk about here is Destiny of an Emperor. So this game is a Capcom NES RPG. It's kind of got like a little bit of strategy elements to it. It's themed around like Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which I'm sure you're more than familiar with now, Spike.
God, so many hours of familiarity. Yes.
Like you look at
Is
it on
this
the
Koei?
overworld. No, this is Capcom.
No, it's Capcom.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Capcom. Okay. Yeah. Little indie company from the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, so like you look at it on the overworld, and it looks a lot like Dragon Quest, and it's kind of surprising because like I'd always thought like Capcom really debuted the RPG with Breath of Fire, but they were making games well before it. It's got like some elements of strategy games to it. The combat to it, like it has that kind of like pairing your armies versus their armies, which was like kind of hard to pull off on the NES, I have to imagine, with programming. And Ghoul and I were looking at this run as one of our like, low key, I think this might get in kind of picks when we were doing our, behind the scenes little prediction sheet. And so I remember pulling this up distinctly, listening to the soundtrack and being like, this soundtrack bops. I have to imagine this was like one of the Mega Man composers. And I looked the composer up on Video Game Music Database. It was not a Mega Man composer, but it was the composer for DuckTales.
So,
Nice.
So if you want an RPG
I just got
composer,
the moon theme just
just going through your head there.
running through my brain right now, man.
Yeah, I mean, like again, this is one of those games that when GK and I both saw it, we're like, this is like really kind of cool. I mean, I had to do some research. It's like, was this like actually localized? Are we playing like a? No, this was an officially released game and everything. I was like, wow, it's based on like a weird old manga that like I'd never heard of until I saw this, but it really looks like, I mean, it looks a little bit like a hybrid of like a Dragon Quest as well, with some really neat sprite work and some cool things. Like, it just looked like a fun game to play. And I say this to somebody who really is not the retro RPG guy. Like, I haven't really played, like, OG FF1 or anything like that. Like, it just looked like a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
And
Also,
also,
give
of
a shout out
course,
to my boy Evil Ash 25, the runner of this. I'm not familiar with their history since we did Chrono Cross. He and I did it 9 years ago. But Evil Ash 25 is just a super informative runner, puts a ton of work into it, really pioneered making the Chrono Cross route of 9 years ago. And I mean, I'm sure has done a wonderful job putting together Destiny of an Emperor for a showcase here at Limit Break. So,
Yep. And so that is, I guess, we do have one more run of this day. This one starts pretty late in the evening. I wasn't sure if we counted which day we counted this on. But our final game of the evening will be Aiden Chronicles. You can take this one, Spike.
yeah, I was about to say, one of the absolute top 5 Nintendo's, maybe top 4 Nintendo 64 RPGs. Man, when I think RPG Limit Break, there is not a console in the world I think of more than the Nintendo 64 and its inclusion, dog. Well, so they did Quest 64 like 5-6 years ago, and they said, I guess we'll do the other one. So here it
Paper
is.
Mario
Aiden Chronicles.
twice.
I was gonna say it's Paper Mario, Ogre Battle, and like these two. Like that's
And Ogre Battle was on the backup list for this event,
Let's
too.
go. Dying to get
And-
the N64 in here. One of the biggest things, Hactical, awesome runner, very, very entertaining. Always puts a lot of work into his runs. But for a lot of my research, I also would read through like what their pitches were and everything. And what I love is that there's maybe 5 times in Hactical's pitch for this game. He said, great N64 charm / jank. Everything was charm / because you boot up and 2 seconds in, you're like, oh, that's an N64 game. 100% right there. It looks like the little brother of a Quest 64. But one thing, obviously, I'm into all these like big time console challenges and everything that people are doing. I played through the entire Super Nintendo library, got a bunch of people who've done GameCube, N64. N64, I went and looked at 4 different people who have played the N64 library. Aiden Chronicles, like 50 hours, like an actually very long, probably drawn out RPG with all of its charm and N64 jank and frame rate and all that sort of stuff. So the fact that Hactical has this down to 3.5 hours, I'm like, okay, what kind of high tier routing? Looking late in the run, they're very, very low level in the teens. So how they're able to get out some exploits to get past a lot of the combat in this run, I'm very, very interested in seeing. And it's just a run that self-described by him that it's got a lot of little glitches and minor sequence breaks, but it doesn't just fully skip any major sequences of the game, which myself as a speedrun fan and viewer, I feel like that's kind of where runs land for me. That's the sweet spot, is there's little things that speed up the game, get through some longer sequences, but still the structure of the game is there. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. All N64 fans, this is your block right here. This is what you get.
All the 4 fans. Spike's got his in the background over there.
Oh yeah, right. Let's go, baby.
I love the N64 and the console and all of that. The N64 jank is just so delicious when you have GK's over there trying to show off his as well. But
I was going to say, that was after my time.
I was going to pull over my controller, but it's tangled up with my SNES controller and like 3 other things I haven't used it in a while.
Dude, I get that.
All right. So to kind of just recap our first day here, we're opening it off with Valkyria Chronicles, following up with Phantasy Star 4, the end of the millennium, into Cassette Beasts, into our into like going from new to old with Destiny of the Emperor, and then finally meeting somewhere in the middle with Aiden Chronicles.
It's just somewhere day one. Like there's just a little bit of everything. We got a strategy RPG. Yep. We have a 16-bit classic. We have an indie brand new game. We have an NES game that looks like Dragon Quest. Like there's just so much diversity on this day one. Which is like, those are the best day ones, is when you look at it and go, none of these runs share any elements whatsoever, and all of them are awesome.
Yep. 100%. So, we're going into Monday, and I get to talk about this one because it's one of my favorite games. It is a run it's very near and dear to my heart. Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. We're going to have a race between Tonkatsu and Reef, who are both from Japan. So, Partners in Time, we had back in Limit Break 2018 was a co-op run between myself and Snowion, who at the time were 2 of the top runners of that category. After that run, the game went inactive for about like 4 or 5 years. And it took a lot of push from 3 runners. Sway, who runs like every Mario RPG, and then Tonkatsu and Reef, who have run a lot of the games in the Mario and Luigi series, and they've really pushed this game down, partially because we have had some new strats, but partially we've just gotten they got really good at the stuff that we were like, oh, no human is going to be able to get good enough at this. Any percent actually uses the gate skip strategy that we don't show off in all bosses, so we skip like somewhere around half of the game to get to the end of the game, similar to Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. And you're really under leveled, and you got to come up with a lot of like a way to do damage. And this game has bros attacks that can theoretically go infinite. So I want to show you a clip. This is actually a clip from an outdated PB from Reef. We have a better strat that makes this take about half as long. I'm going to pull this up here. So here is the first phase of the final boss. and you put on a red shell. So you have to kick it, and it gets faster and faster. If you miss a single input, that's it. There's no room for error with this, the way that there is with some of the other attacks. So this goes on for almost 2 minutes.
Oh my god!
Just this speed for 2 minutes, and Reef actually doesn't get the quick kill, but he comes so close to the quick kill that he's able to kill the boss with like a basic jump after this. In this particular clip.
Dude,
so
how do
I think you
keep
kind of
track to know that, oh, I'm within jump damage. Like, are you counting this whole time? This is
yes. You have to do 1,800 damage to this boss to give you a mathematical count. So as you see, each kick is like 2 kicks is 13. So that's like 280 kicks.
Oh.
And if you mess up, especially if you get really deep into it, you just you have to deal with the boss's like desperation phase in her second half of her health bar, and that is annoying. Also, every time you get a crit, you hear this sound effect, and it's like, this is really rhythm based. So like, and a crit happens randomly, so just it's like that can really easily throw you off. I think you get the point. We've been going on here. This is only like 60% of the way through the
I love this.
video.
Don't turn it off.
I'm
The
like,
last 2 hours of the show, we're just watching this.
I'll play the
level
I could
stuff,
just
isn't it? It really is. It's brilliant.
well, no, I mean,
Yeah,
think
so
of
this-
like how infamous super jumps in SMRPG are.
Yeah.
That's 100. Like,
Yeah.
let's just triple it, just casually, and then also add like random sound effects in there that are
Random
meant to
crits,
throw you
yeah.
off.
So he did an attack beforehand that did like
you see the
80 damage. So now he's just gonna do a finisher that does about 70, and that's enough to kill. Well, I won't.
Oh,
leave
that
you
was
hanging.
such a well-delivered line. That's 100.
Yep.
That's amazing.
That's just the first phase of the final
Looking forward
boss.
to that.
There is a more consistent strat for that now, but like you got to pull that off like with at the end of a run, like on PB pace with all the jitters, and then like they're gonna be racing, so like they both want to pull that off in the run. So yeah,
Very, very cool stuff. And that's like
That is the
inherently
skills.
what's almost terrifying about anytime you see, oh, this can go on infinitely, right? Because at least super jumps, they're 100. That's actually a cap to how much you can do. You get something like that, all right, at the highest level, this might be the way we have to kill the boss. So yeah, that's terrifying, but also super sick nasty. That's great.
yeah. I've heard him do it on his stream. Like that was a VODless thing, and he's like exhaling every time he's doing it. And I'm just like, wow. Like, whatever you have to do to make this work.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, very intense run, very skill intensive. On to our next game, Landstalker, Treasure King Knoll by Lady Ariana. So I'll let you take this one, Tim.
Yes, again, this is another more mature title. We're talking 1992 here, Genesis RPG, and it's more, very vintage. Yes, definitely. It's a more of a sort of action RPG. This one, but I did do my research on this one, and apparently, if you like it, it is available on Nintendo Switch apparently as well.
Oh,
so that would be.
title.
Yeah, it'd be good to give that a go. It's an isometric puzzle solving platforming experience with a very silly story, and it has quite a lot of similarity to a certain sort of well-known Nintendo's franchise with a sort of little green hatted guy with a sword. So
We'll see him come up a few times in here.
Yeah, you might know him a little bit, but it's very similar in a lot of ways to that. The wonderful Lady Ariana is going to be running this one, the any percent JP no death statue skip, which basically doesn't allow the specific RNG dependent death statue skip trick because, well, RNG. You'd rather get the run more complete. And there is another fantastic incentive to go with this run that I absolutely want to see. I'm sorry, I love these incentives. And again, folks, we've got to see this one. Who does not want to see Lady Ariana running the dog dungeon? So you need to get the incentive to run the specific dog dungeon, which is probably as amazing as it sounds. So it's got
Cat
dog in
dog
the
in day
title. I'm
one
sold.
already.
Yeah, it's dog in the title. I'm sold. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. It would be amazing to see that. And yes, this is going to be again a little bit more blast from the retro past sort of stuff. Definitely my sort of thing. But yeah, hope everybody enjoys that one. I'm definitely looking forward to it. We'll get that dog dungeon as well.
I like
We
how
got
Spike
cat
immediately looked
incentives,
over.
we got dog incentives, we got everything you need over here.
I like how Spike immediately looked over his shoulder, like towards where his dogs tend to be waiting.
I was like, that's right. I got the door closed for this one, but I'm like, man, I bet she's right there behind the door. My baby girl.
Awesome. So, moving up, we are still 16-bit, but it is definitely a game about a decade later. We have Golden Sun, one of the most beloved Nintendo RPGs of all time.
So good.
Run by AK Diley. We'll be running the any % no save and quit category, which saw like a really huge surge in the last like 4 years or so. A whole bunch of people started running this. So if you're familiar with this game, from like all the way back in the game FAQs days, the game is rather infamous for having a lot of RNG manipulations. So they invented no save and quit to like, kind of play the game a little bit more like closer to how it is with like a casual playthrough where things are a little bit more unpredictable. Like you do kind of generally get a sense of like what everything can do, and you route around like if this happens then this, etc. But yeah, so it becomes more of a test of knowledge, test of reaction than just like inputting the right RNG manipulations. AK even sent me a clip of this game of one of the game's mid bosses, and the thing that I love about Golden Sun as a speedrun, if this wasn't a super big game, this would still be like the selling point to me of the speedrun. The menuing in this game is A++. Like
It's stunning. Like it's like I always say like one of the hallmarks of a good RPG speedrun is just how like responsive and fast. Like if you could like look away from the screen and do all of your menuing, and like everything would be like perfectly input and like move real quickly. That's the hallmark of a great RPG speedrun. Golden Sun is like the only competition I can think of is like the Final Fantasy IXs, like as far as like just the sheer volume and speed at which you can input your menus in this game. Like
It's a legit skill. It absolutely is.
The combat is so much fun to watch. Even just the menuing of like your genie and everything as you're like equipping them on everyone. But yeah, everything happens so fast.
Yeah, the inputs are nice and quick. The animations this game are real quick, but like watch his turns. So I actually ended up just glossing over the first turn. But just like look at how fast he's scrolling through these menus. Just immediately like paying attention to what all is happening. It's like, okay, he's doing this. These characters are low. I'm gonna heal with these two, and I'm gonna it almost feels like he's planning out each turn like as the previous turn is happening, and then just has like the inputs ready like in his head. As I recall, I think pressing L and R move left and right on the menu. So it's like if you move right, you tap L, like right, R, right, and that like is 3 really fast inputs to save time on like rather than having to tap it 3 times on the D-pad. So like that's the kind of menu proficiency you can get with this game. It is a super cool run to just like see somebody who is really good at it. Yeah. And the last time we had this game, Plexa ran it for Limit Break 2022, and he is kind of probably the name most associated with this, being this series being kind of the torchbearer of the first 2 Golden Suns, and actually he's also Dark Dawn for many years. And I think like his work, as well as the work of several other people in the community in the last few years in particular, have really pushed this game down, and a whole bunch of runners have come in and just pushed it to its limit, even in the categories that don't use its RNG manipulation, which like literally push it to its limit.
I'm still watching this menu, dude. It's so good.
It's what I was saying, the level of skill here and what Ghost was saying about the sort of speed of reaction, not just from an execution point of view, but from realizing what is going on in real time and then reacting to it and then hitting the buttons. It's a very high skill ceiling there. And it's to do that over a long run is absolutely fantastic.
This is one of the harder,
and it goes back to what GK is saying, how this is not, there's no RNG manipulation. We're saving and quitting right now. Like, we don't know, like, no fights are on scripts or anything. He's having to react to every single thing that happens. Okay, what is my best play in this moment to not just deplete the boss's health bar, but be set up to deal more damage and just survive in turns 2, 3, 4 through 20. Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah. And that's one of the harder like fights of the run, as I understand it, because you're quite under leveled, and it's like you really don't want anyone dead in that fight.
Brilliant.
So like, you know, you're trying to keep everybody like you saw some of those characters were getting like single digit health. So there is still like a bit of luck component to it, but just like the inputs in that game are just so cool. So moving on to our next game, we have Octopath Traveler 2. Another one of those short games on the marathon, one of those newer games, this one being from 2022, I believe. But Octopath has just been kind of like, it's been a kind of a phenomenon in the speedrunning scene in general. A lot of people, like even people who aren't super into RPGs, have dabbled in speedrunning because there's so much potential for things to do. Like we had any percent for this game at Limit Break 2023. We had, well, we didn't have, but GDQ had the Galdera Super Boss speed run. And then now there's all sorts of categories for like complete this character's story. But here we have the solo character story, which is going to be a bid war between Ochet, Oswald, and Throne. I believe that's how they're pronounced. I have the game on my desk here. I haven't yet played it, but I did speed run the first game, and I know the gist of like little bits and pieces of the speed run. To kind of, you know, so you get to decide which of these three characters gets the solo story run. I asked Bram a little bit for background details, and Bram's an awesome runner, and he's definitely somebody who, like, as somebody who follows the speedrunning scene, he ran E7 and E8. He's somebody I've seen come a long way with the various speed games that he runs. And he told me basically that each of these runs kind of has like different challenges. Like one of the characters has like a minimum level to beat. One of the characters, that being Throne, one of the characters, Oswald, has like a really tough late game boss that you have to deal with. And then Ochet has the ability to recruit monsters or capture monsters, and she kind of has to like capture she has to capture like a monster like that appears randomly throughout the run, and it's not an easy thing to do. So it's like every one of these categories has something about it that makes it complicated. So I think it'll be a pretty compelling bid war, and this game just, there's so many different ways to run it that it just makes it for like a really interesting thing for marathons, because we're always getting something a bit new.
I mean, this one's just cool because it's like a hybrid of a speed run and a challenge run in a way. You know, you're not supposed to do solo traveler in Octopath.
No.
You're supposed to be recruiting friends and having them go with you. Like, it's a completely different way of playing the game, and like the time on this, it is wild that this can be done as quickly as it is.
Yeah, I think the fastest of the three is about 50 minutes.
Wow.
So.
And again, this game has got such a distinctive art style, such a distinctive feel to it, that it will be very, and the fact you get to choose as well what story you want to go for here it's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to that one.
So our little quick recap of the first half here. We have Partners in Time, Landstalker, Treasures of King Null for Genesis, Golden Sun, any percent no save and quit, and then Octopath Traveler 2. And then for the second half of the day, we have a pair of runs here. You'll see that the slides look very similar. Spike, you talk to us about Crystallis.
Yeah, Crystallis here, one of the kind of, I don't know if you would put it under the cult classics of the NES, but a pretty well-beloved action RPG here. And it's like you're saying, that is, GK did not screw up on the slides. You're not going to get just one, but kind of the first time I can ever think something like this being tried. You're going to get two runs of Crystallis in specifically, first off, the Axeman is going to be coming to do an any percent glitchless run of it, which ups it about 20 minutes from the glitched version of it, allowing to see kind of the entire game right there, kind of fill out the run a little bit. But then followed up right after that, you're then going to take that same game, Crystalis, and do it in a randomizer with longtime GDQ runner. We've got Uranium Anchor coming out to do that. Again, I don't think I'm the only one. I'm the one this is the first time I've ever heard of something like this being tried. And I love that RPG Limit Break is giving it a go. That you're going to be able to see that kind of base game. Because I think a lot of times when you show off randomizers, and maybe the game is not like super well, it's not like a Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time established. You might say, oh, what is exactly being randomized here? I didn't know. People, oh, that's vanilla. I didn't know that's where you got it, vanilla. Maybe being able to see a full run right here and the importance of all these items, these various things that can like buff your character and whatnot, seeing all that then switched up, knowing the significance of it and which things are almost more in the meta of the randomizer compared to the speed run. I think that's super, super cool. They're both relatively short runs, so I think this is a good take by the committee. Hour 18 into a 2-hour run. Two awesome different runners here. And just as a base, Crystalis is a very, very cool run that even if you've never heard of it, it's another easy one to get into. You watch just 5 seconds of gameplay here. The movement, incredibly fast. The combat looks practically like drive-by, and they're done. Get rid of them. And fast menuing on top of all that. So everything we just talked about with Golden Sun, you're going to get right here again. Everything's going to be fast-paced and fun, and I'm looking forward to how the two metas of a straight 80% speedrun versus a randomizer is going to come off in this showcase.
Yeah, and like as you said, what's kind of nice about that too is it's like randomizers can be rather volatile, so it's ultimately like the two back-to-back still ends up only being about a 3.5-hour run. That is
right.
Somewhere around average for Limit Break is the fun
I was going to say.
Mm-hmm. And it's like for 2 for the price of 1 in that span. So speaking of, because the next run we're going to get to is longer than both of these combined. So that is going to be, so if you take one of the other beloved franchises of RPGs in the NES, you take the most recent game, you get Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age. This is going to be our second race and our first on-site race of the marathon. With Keanu Lookalike and Jarek Condra, and they'll be running the PC any percent category of this game.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Discord had a weird sound. I thought maybe I disconnected on accident.
No, it was Ashton.
I heard a couple different audio. Boom.
Dragon Quest XI is. Every time I hear people talk about this game, I think it's one of those games that's like almost aging better as it goes along. Because like when it came out, people are like, oh yeah, it's good. But like the more people talk about this game, the better and better people talk about it. And people don't know about this game as a speedrun. It's actually like really interesting how this game developed. So when it initially released, it came out on PS4, I believe, PS4, and I think it was 3DS in Japan. But like that version of the run had its own quirks, and then they released that version of the game on PC, which had all these like weird glitches and skips because they never intended the game to not be like, consoles have those locked frame rates and everything else. And all of a sudden on PC, it's like, well, I can change my frame rate. I can do this, I can turn the camera at a speed the game isn't intending to be turned at. And like that led to a bunch of like interesting changes and glitches. And then they released it on Switch, which added the ability to skip cutscenes, which was a huge deal given that this game is extremely long casually.
445 is the with cutscene skips.
Yeah, and then and with the glitches, there are so many glitches and skips on the PC version of this run that now has the cutscene skips.
I actually can show you one of them right here. I did ask Keanu to give me a clip from his stream. But one of the skips you're mentioning, like with the camera, so you get really close to this cutscene barrier and then just like rotate the mouse really fast in kind of just this weird movement, and you skip past this barrier here. And now you just see on the mini map, you're just completely out of bounds. And like there's collision here in some spots. It's like amazing the floor even still works. But so it's like some of these slopes are here, just walking through a rock. You see all these trees just floating here, just textures. Unreal Engine 4, beautiful, beautiful piece of tech.
Thank you so much for existing.
Anyway, so what he's doing here, so he only at this time in the run, I believe, has 2 of the, like, I can't remember if it was 6 or 7 orbs you need to collect to get to the game's second act. But he's just skipping to create a warp point in the forest, which is like right where the end of Act 1 is. So he's just skipping a massive chunk of the game by doing this whole part.
Again, like that, like, you know, it's such a weird thing to say, like, yeah, the thing that broke this game was that they intended the camera to be moved with the right analog stick and not with the mouse, but it really does, like, completely change what the game is capable of doing and what it lets you do. Super interesting, super unique, really cool.
Yep. And then our last game of the day, I believe, will be Secret of Varonis, which, Ghoul, you want to explain what this game is?
Yeah, this was one that I hadn't heard of until we, you know, did our research for, you know, this and for the, you know, little mini predictions that GK and I did on the side. This is a really gorgeous and cute RPG that, like, is meant to look like, you know, Final Fantasy Legend or Saga on Game Boy. You have these, like, really cute black and white sprites, but, like, they're still taking advantage of what the PC could do that the Game Boy couldn't. You know, it's got, like, a normal sized, you know, screen. It's not whatever. What's the Game Boy? Like 100 pixels by 100 pixels? No. We're gonna do Game Boy sprites, but we're gonna take out this, like, you know, much larger bit of the screen. It just looks like a really beautiful, cool indie RPG. It's a game that I looked at. I'm like, I gotta play this game. It just looks super fun.
Yeah, and I believe this is Leggy's 3rd run of Limit Break. She's really come out a few times in the last couple of years, so I'm glad to see you get another one of these kind of, like, more interesting indie games. I'm kind of like a sucker for, like, neat little indie RPGs that have, like, a kind of cute little conceit to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it wears inspiration very much on its sleeve. Like, it is like, oh yeah, this is Saga. Like, this is trying to be Final Fantasy Legend. But it looks great. I'm excited to see this one.
Yep. So that is the back half of our Monday, which is a pair of Crystallis runs, followed by Dragon Quest XI, and then finally a little indie RPG called The Secret of Varonis. So going into our Tuesday block of runs here, and we'll have Tiny Tim starting off with a game that probably doesn't need much introduction for y'all in the Limit Break chat. It's Final Fantasy XII, specifically the Zodiac Age.
Yes, specifically the Zodiac Age. I have quite a history with this game. I really, really, really do enjoy my Final Fantasies. 12 definitely being one of my favorite ones. Now, we did have the original Final Fantasy 12 run by Zebra back at Limit Break 2022. But this time, the wonderful Madelon is going to be bringing us the Zodiac Age, which is the updated version of this game. And it also comes with yet another interesting incentive. No animals this time at the moment, sadly. But there is the new game. There's plenty in the game, so there's chocobos. So, hey.
You could be a bunny. I was like, waiting for all of
there's
them.
There's the new game minus incentive for this one. Which I have to say, when I heard of it, I thought, what the heck is that? So I had to do my research, and it means everyone starts at level 1 and doesn't gain any experience. So it is basically a level 1 run of Final Fantasy 12. And as you can imagine, that makes an already interesting run rather tough. And adds quite a lot of complexity to it. It adds quite a lot of issues with the routing, I believe. And I have to say, I had the absolute pleasure of seeing this run in person quite recently. Madelon ran it at an event not so long ago, and I got to see this run in person, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was the level 1. We got the level 1 incentive, and it was very, very good indeed. Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic game. Great characters. Great soundtrack. Yeah, Final Fantasy 12. If you like your Final Fantasies like me, you'll be very happy. And I'm really, really looking forward to this one. This is going to be, fun, really, really fun stuff. Just chill. Just great game.
It's always like a buzzword you tell someone, we're going to beat the game at level 1. And I'm always fascinated whenever there's a game that can allow for that. I always have touted up games like Kingdom Hearts 2 that actually its combat engine and how it scales damage in a lot of places allows for level 1 to not just be a gross slog of a challenge. And it's not, again, this is a built-in challenge to the game, correct? This is not like a glitch that keeps them at level 1.
No, it's a specific mode that's included with the Zodiac Age, and as you were saying, Spike, it's a challenge, very much so. As I said, I saw the run at recently, and it's a lot to handle. There's a lot going on, lots of moving parts, lots of things you have to consider. So yeah, it's a real challenge from a skill perspective. So yeah, it's gonna be a fantastic run to watch.
I think what made it so interesting to me was I would look at the estimates. Like, I want to say the estimate only added like 5 additional minutes to it. I'm like, and they said something like, it's not that much slower. It's just considerably more tricky. So I'm interested to see how that's all going to pan out in the marathon itself. So going on to our next game, this one might need a little bit more of an introduction. Tim, I believe you volunteered for this one as well.
Yes, I had a look at this one too. I have to say, coming off Final Fantasy XII, this is a little bit different, to say the least. This is one for the more tactical RPG fans. We do like to cater for our tactical brethren here, and it's also of my vintage as well. We've got a NES game here from 1991. So that predates just about everybody apart from me and Spike. So, yeah.
Thank you for bringing me in with that. Yeah,
Sorry, Spike.
The reality check. Thank you.
But no, this one was never released outside of Japan. So it is a Japanese release, this one. Going to be really, really interesting to see it showcased. Not something the Western audience will have particularly seen. And the runner for this one is going to be Karma. And they're going to be showing off the any percent good ending route, which is basically completing the game, getting the good ending, as the name suggests, but this time without doing any of the sort of bonus objectives. So we get the majority of the gameplay. We get the main storyline. This game, however, has an amazing soundtrack. It's got really, really, really good soundtrack. And one of the things that the speedrun route does is they do include several tricks to cut out parts of certain missions. So it's turn-based, well, it's tactical RPG, so you've got certain missions to achieve, and there are different glitches and tricks that are used to short-circuit those, make things a little bit quicker. And this one really is quite a bit different. It's definitely a little bit more unusual, and it will be a fantastic watch. I really, really, having looked at this game, I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be a really, really good fun to watch and to listen to, of course.
Yep. Yeah, we got a nice pluck of the really popular, well, decently popular Crystal. We got Crystallis. It's like one of the decently popular NES RPGs. There weren't a ton outside of Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. We'll get to one of those. But now we also got Destiny of an Emperor and Dark Lord, of two of our more obscure NES games, and kind of we get quite a big variety with this event, giving modern indie stuff all the way back to old school NES type games.
I absolutely love. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I was misremembering the order here. The next one's going to be on the Super Nintendo, but the console for the game after that, I'm actually really interested to talk about.
Yeah, no, the depth, the fact we've got so many of these NES RPGs in is something I really, really like to see. And yeah, we've got something else really, really old coming up as well shortly. So we'll wait for that.
Just like Tim and I, we got all the old stuff coming your way.
Oh yeah, I love the old stuff.
Our next one, though, a little bit newer, still on the richer side. You're going to be playing this one in the not too distant future, Spike.
Yeah, it's a couple hundred games off. So at the rate I'm going, it's not too far away. We got Robo Trek. And I always love looking at the box art for this one. Because it was like, oh, this one's going to be dark and gritty out in the vacuum of space. Nah, dude, this thing's cutesy as heck. This is like Digimon. You're going to be booting up all of a sudden. You go in, very, very cute art style, very, very silly in a lot of what it does, and a very unique combat system. In that what you're actually doing, instead of you fighting, you are building your robots that then do all of the combat for you, which is cool. Just that you're getting that level of customization, but it's customization all the way down to the stats as well. That you'll see them constantly going through the run. They come up to, all right, for these next couple of fights, and then they go in and build the robo. I'm going to give myself 16 speed right here, and I'm going to dump all the rest of my stats into power or guard or, energy or whatever these stats need to be knowing that when you see stuff like that in a speed run, they've got this so meticulously routed out to where this will allow me to 3-cycle this boss or be just fast enough to where the boss is going to have less of an opinion in this fight and I'll be able to get through it a little bit faster. I love anything like that where you can min-max the stats down that much. Very, very cool. And beyond that, I always love whenever we have, the Chrono Triggers and the Chrono Crosses and a lot of these other RPGs where the enemy encounters are visible on the world map, because then that gives you that extra level of, okay, we also have to dodge everything. I'm going to try to get past every single encounter that we do not need, which is probably almost everything outside of a boss fight. We'll see when the run actually shows up Tuesday at RPG Limit Break. But yeah, I think that's all that sort of stuff is very, very cool. We also got another incentive here. Well, let me make sure I get the name of it. I believe it's all quests / all capsules. Yes, all quests / all capsules that you can all donate for, again, towards an amazing cause here. And make it to where they have to dodge all of the potential enemies throughout the game and show off another super, super cool Super Nintendo RPG that is a little bit under the radar, but it's got the Enix logo on it. You know it's going to be good.
I just love how 90s that box art is.
It really is. They didn't know, because if you go look at the Japanese box art, it's a completely different video game. But they were trying to figure out, how are we going to sell this to 90s kids? They got to think it looks dark and edgy and cool. And nah, dude.
I love
Kid looks like he's from Digimon.
I love SNES. I love SNES box art. You get like Breath of Fire where they try to make it like He-Man.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just get stuff like Phalanx, which is just...
Dude, my man on the banjo. But there's a ship up in the corner that's like 4 pixels wide. It's great. Shoot him up.
And it's been interesting because this run's been in Limit Break like twice before, both times run by PJ, and so now we're getting a bit of a category difference to expand on it, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it come back because it's been quite some time. So moving on to our next game, one you probably definitely haven't heard of. For a console you probably haven't heard of. This is Etoile Princess, if I'm pronouncing that right. Run by my good pal Shentok, doing the all collectibles category in an hour on a console known as the Sharp X68000 or 68K. I always forget if you're supposed to pronounce the X or not. But anyways, so this thing is like a Japanese PC that released in like 1987, and this game is like, it's one of those games like you haven't heard of it, you look into it, and it is eminently watchable as a speed run in like the best ways. Like I wanted to play this game just out of curiosity after I like watched bits and pieces of his run for some prep for this. So it has this like, it has some animation quality from like the 90s Japanese PCs before like that started being a thing more on like, the consoles. It's got this sort of top-down kind of action game elements with like some dungeon crawling, but it also has like a sort of Z-axis, which it's not isometric, but it does have like some, it does have like a jump button and things with elevation. If you've ever played a game like Alundra, for example, it's kind of got like that, but like 4 years earlier. Imagine if like Zelda had, platforming in 1993. It's got a banging soundtrack, like PC, like, TurboGrafx 16, or PC Engine as it's known in Japan. And then like the Sharp X68000. These games have like, I think like stronger sound processors than like the other 16-bit contemporaries. So the soundtrack is like a lot more like fullness to it. And I just kind of love the way that the games from these, PC, like these dedicated PC consoles, like they have just fantastic soundtracks that just like have a very kind of full sound that feels like we didn't really get that a whole lot in the West until like, mid 90s or like even on the PlayStation and N64 and Saturn. So really cool game, really cool movement. Like you just go zoom in this game. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing this one in the event.
one of those games where you just say, Shen, how did you find this? Like,
That's so many of Shentalk's games.
it is literally like Shentalk's bread and butter. I've never heard of this. The shark. I'm like, this isn't a real thing. Shen made this up. This is, but no, it is a real thing, and it's super cool.
Continuing on the retro game train here, we have Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar. I believe we've actually had Ultima 4 done in the past, but it was I believe it was the NES version, so we're doing things a little bit differently this time.
Yeah, we're busting out the MS-DOS. So speaking of, things as old as dirt we're talking about right here. We are going to one of the granddaddies of just starting off RPGs. We got, again, Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar, the 100% no major glitches category here by Organ Mike. And a number of things jumped out at me right here. First of all, it's on MS-DOS. So, there's going to be just this general nostalgia for this era of gaming. I love that we're representing, in a couple of games here. Slight preview. We might be talking about some games from 2024, Meta 4, yada, yada. That rhymed. That was very, very good. We've talked about some NES, Super Nintendo era games. But this is obviously such a specific kind of video game and video game subgenre within RPGs. That I think it's very, very cool for it to get a showcase here at the event. From just any RPG speedrunning fan mentality, it's open world. So there are tons and tons of quests that they can do in any order they want. And I always love hearing stuff like that. How do you, if I do this chapter or this quest early, how does that support all of these other quests in the long term? How can I front load things with benefits for me? I always think that's super, super cool. A lot of high improvisation that this sort of run is going to call for, as things are not consistent in the slightest. So having to see Mike utilize a lot of their knowledge in order to get through the run. And I pulled this one right from their pitch, their submission for it, that they will pay far less for things that are worth far more. So there's some sort of I don't know if there's a haggling system in some way in the game, or just you're going to be able to get, the Buster Sword for $5 on the black market. I don't know what it is. But either way, I think there's going to be a lot of shenanigans here, and Organ Mike is going to put on a wonderful showing here of Ultima 4.
Yes, they also have an incentive to run Ultima 3, which I don't believe we've had in the marathon, and that is a 10-minute kind of bonus. So if you want to add a little bit more Ultima to the marathon, you can donate to that. I also believe they'll be running with their daughter Charlotte on hand to help out a little bit, which would be just. I had the opportunity to interview them both last year, mainly Organ Mike, and Charlotte was there, and it was just the cutest thing. So
oh, that's awesome.
I'm excited to see the run for many different reasons. All right. So next game here, we have another one of our consoles that I think is debuting at this event. Unless I'm misremembering. So we have ourselves a Game Gear game here. I believe Shen offered a game for the Game Gear. I don't remember if that was one that he ran or one that didn't end up happening because of the COVID delaying the 2020 schedule. There's another game on the schedule we can get to about that. But we do have Axe Battler, a Legend of Golden Axe. And yes, I believe this is related, in fact, to the Golden Axe series. But this was a Sega Game Gear game.
Wow.
Yes, this one's very, very interesting. You can probably see a theme with the games that I've been looking at here. But this is another retro game. We're 1991 again on the Sega Game Gear, which is perhaps not really known for its RPGs, I would say. But it is a very interesting title, this, because as the name suggests, it is inspired by the sort of 2D hack and slash Golden Axe that most people maybe will have heard of. And Axe Battler is the name of the barbarian character from Golden Axe, and we happen to be playing Axe Battler here. They're named, but Axe Battler is a barbarian named after an axe, but they wield a sword. They don't actually wield an axe. So, yeah, okay. But it's inspired by hack and slash classic Golden Axe. It's Game Gear title 1991. Quite similar in a lot of ways to Zelda 2. I noticed somebody asked about Zelda 2 earlier on. Well, here's your Zelda 2 clone. It's got different sort of play fields and different sort of styles. So you've got a little bit of sort of side scrolling. You've got a little bit of top down. So I think you've got a little bit of village visits and stuff as well. So very Zelda 2-esque in that respect. This one's going to be run by Sheriff, and they are going to be going for the 100% category. So we get to see everything that this little retro gem has to offer. And this game has actually been run before for Questing for Glory. So it's actually really, really nice to see it on Limit Break itself. And yeah, that's going to be the one for those with the more retro tendencies like myself. It's going to be good. It's nice to see a Game Gear.
Tim in his chair with like a glass of wine, like vintage.
It is it's vintage stuff.
92, that was a good year.
Can I just point out that GhostKumo mentioned there about Shentok. Shentok is definitely a purveyor of these more obscure systems, and also likes to play some games that are a little bit slightly unusual. So yeah. But that is the Game Gear is definitely something interesting if you've never seen it. If you've never actually seen a Game Gear, it could be quite good. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. Be a lot of fun.
The hilarity. Listen, I understand the estimate's 35 minutes, but we might have to have 18 extra AAA batteries ready to go to make sure this run is. Because at first I was like, a Game Gear RPG? What? We need a power plant over here ready to run this sucker. Okay, it's 35 minutes, but still. Nobody beats Sonic the Hedgehog for the Game Gear. This is so fascinating to me that this is on the schedule. And it's based on the hack and slash Golden Axe trilogy of the Genesis. What is this? You told me, but I'm still reeling.
You would be struggling to beat this on one set of batteries, most likely. But
so, yeah.
we will see.
What was it 6 AAA batteries or 6 AA batteries?
It was
6 AA's.
It was enough to where my mom stopped buying them. I had to get a Game Boy then.
Jumping off the 90s handhelds, we got a game all the way from 2024, Metaphor ReFantagio, nominated for Game of the Year in so many different publications last year. We got 2 of a classic SMT runners, this being sort of the game made by a lot of the SMT and Persona team. We got Champion Beef and Freedom Pulse, who will be co-oping a hard, true-ending speed run of this game in about 6.5 hours, which, if you're familiar with how long Persona runs can get, that is short.
That's digest. That's
the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
This game is absolute, I don't know how to describe. I was not super excited for this game when they first announced it, just for a variety of reasons. We don't need more Persona. Surely we've seen everything Persona has to offer, and then they drop this bombshell of a video game on us. Yeah. It's stunning to watch in person. The gameplay, the combat in this game is so it elevates the SMT Persona style combat even further. It's I cannot describe as a SMT Persona enthusiast just how good this game is and how accessible. And the crazy thing is it's really accessible casually, but the hard mode of this game is hard. There are so many different variables and experiences, and you have to figure out which of these classes you're doing, because it's kind of a class system instead of the demon system that you have in a Persona or SMT. But these final bosses, they took me a long time to figure out how to actually get through and kind of get through. And some of the damage numbers you throw up in this game are silly. I believe GK even has a clip of some of these bosses and some of the fights in this. But I adore this game. It was, like I said, last year was a banger year for games, especially for Sega, who has another game for 2024 on this list. Don't worry. But,
don't think I moved it to the right folder. I want to make sure this is the right clip. Beef was awesome and actually made a montage of this. I am so sad we don't have audio because the British voice acting in this game is kind of awesome. I blacked out splits and chat mainly for spoiler reasons on here. Just to let Beef know, I really wish we had the audio for this, but just the damage numbers he's just like pumping out like throughout this run. Like just crit for like 1700 damage, which is pretty high for like this game. 3,000 there, 8,000 there, 20,000 there.
Oh my God. And I love this dude. Like, you can't beat the style of like your personas and your SMTs. Like, just everything has such, like, the sound design is so wonderful in these games. The oomph, the visual design that comes off of every single attack. And, when you're routing it like this, the ridiculousness of these explosions and whatnot, it's so good. Very easy to get into. And again, let's go back. 6.5 hours is nothing. That's like a third of a Persona 4. That's nuts.
And the other thing, like you're noticing, like watch these menus again. Like, not only are they gorgeous, they're fast as hell. Like he is zooming through these things to hit these attacks. Like it's so cool. Ah man, I'm so excited for this run.
I've said by the way that we don't have audio because there's a clip where I think it was Heismay where he's like, I know something of spells, and then he just starts casting spells that just do tons of damage. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just minimize this here. He does some of the parts of the clip I think get into like really late game spoiler territory, so I'll avoid that for now. But yeah, thanks to Beef, he went through like a full on editing process, and he was like not surprisingly, but he was like kind of proud of making that little montage there of just all the like high damage numbers. But yes, 6.5 hours of one of the most beloved RPGs to come out in years. And as has been said by many, it was kind of like the Persona team coming out, doing something a little different and almost outdoing themselves in a lot of ways.
Not almost, they really did. Like I could not believe how good this game was casually. And
Ghoul speedruns.
Oh man, I'm looking.
Ghoul speedruns Persona 4. So if he's saying it, then there's definitely some weight to that. So this game here, this next game we'll be talking about in just a second.
Do we want to go through the schedule or we want to jump to that next game?
Let's get our... Yes. I forget how I have these slides arranged sometimes. Thanks to Ghoul for helping me out on this slideshow. But here's just your quick little recap of everything we have here on Tuesday. Starting off the morning with Final Fantasy XII, going into NES RPG Dark Lord, into SNES RPG Robotrek, into Sharp X 68000 RPG Etoile Princess. I assume I'm pronouncing that right. There's an extra E there and the accent mark. I don't remember exactly how you're supposed to pronounce that. It's not the Pokemon E. I think that one's the other direction. Anyways, Ultima 4 with an Ultima 3 bonus incentive. Then into our Game Gear game with Axe Battler, Legend of Golden Axe, and then finally closing off the evening with a run of Metaphoria Fantasio True Heart Ending. This next game, though,
Yeah. I mean, I really listen, as the resident Weiss X Nerdix expert here, I feel like I should cover this one. I don't know, somebody's running it. I didn't really do that part of the research, but like the thing you got to understand about the Weiss games is that they're normally just giga nasty broken. And this is actually one of the least broken games from the series. A few little exceptions here and there going from chapters 3 to 4. But like the biggest thing, and this is going to get everybody hyped. We've talked about cats. We've talked about dogs. Damn it, we're talking about fish this time. Because fishing is in this game and it's breaking this game. It's somehow, through the power of fishing, we're able to reach a debug menu of sorts. And you might think, oh, well, are we going to be able to effectively ace this game or just trivialize all the combat? No, but what it does allow you to do is you can upgrade your ship, max your ship's speed and steering to where you can get wherever you want. It's absolutely cool stuff right here. While still having a lot of the, combat intact there. Also, by the way, buzzwords. Can I get some buzzwords out here? We got BLJs, backwards long jumps. We find a slope. We're gaining speed on it, and we're going to go everywhere in the world. And, honestly, that's all you need to know. Again, this has been your Weiss expert. That's me.
To just
Spike-
demonstrate.
Nothing
Spike-
to add. Nope. Yep.
Thank you
Here's
so
the
much for that.
BLJs in action. Here's the BLJs in action. Just going up the slopes.
It is a legitimate backwards long jump. And I believe it's with like a surfboard you have of sorts.
Yep. It is backwards. You're mashing jump. You have a longboard. It is a backwards long jump.
It's long jump.
As soon as we saw that it was called that, we were like, we're calling it that.
Oh, yeah. No.
And we're just to this day sad that the sound effect that plays is just the jumping on the board sound effect. It's not the wah 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 wahoo.
This isn't a PC game also, is it?
It's a PC game. Even better.
So, I mean, we
could
could get. There is modding. I've seen some truly cursed stuff.
I have tried. Is the funny thing. Even more amusing too is you also have a 2-player. You also have a 1-player 2 controller set up for several of the glitches too.
Oh, that's so good.
It's so good. There's so many silly things in this run. I love it. It's also, despite being run on the lowest difficulty, a very hard run to do. Well, trust me.
By the way, GhostKumo is running this. He actually knows what's going on. I read the Cliff Notes version of it.
I still can't get over Nerdix, by the way.
The Nerdix, dude. Yeah, I had a couple different options. I was like, I'm gonna go with Nerdix. Yeah, that seems good.
Yeah. Is it gonna? As not to toot my own horn, and I think this will be a good run. I really like running this game, so definitely check it out. Not just because of me, just because this has been like a community effort from a lot of people. And I think it'll make a great showcase. I'd love to be able to show it off.
Yep.
Just want to add that this is well worth a watch. I've seen Ghost do this one quite a bit, so it's definitely it's a good game. It's definitely interesting. It's got lots of boats in it as well, so yeah, it's good.
Let's go boats.
So our next game here, game might need an introduction. Runner shouldn't. We have a little Easter egg here on the slideshow.
Oh no, what do we got here?
I don't know if it's even showing up well on the stream.
It's probably not, but it Spike, why don't you talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, again, this is one of those by Professor Palmer. And Palmer, if anyone, I don't know, he's probably more of a great in-joke for within the community. But this man goes out and finds stuff that I don't even think the devs remember making these games. We've got Anchronics right here. And yeah, it's just one of those. It's an early 2000s game. So we're relatively early in the 3D era. And I guess Professor Palmer found this game and said, oh, this is as broken as Ocarina of Time. I'm going to run this bad boy right now. In his own pitch for the game, he states that there's probably more than 50% of the run where the game is currently in a broken state. There's a ton of out of bounds here. So, you got everybody, we've got your like pretty much completely glitchless runs, your no major glitches. There's some debug menuing. There's backwards long jumps. And you've got games here like Professor Palmer throwing off with Anachronics, just going to be broken to high hell. So make sure you show up for that one. And has also talked about potentially, I guess he knows some of the devs, which is extra cool considering it's like a 25-year-old video game. Potentially come on to do some commentary with them. So I hope they're good sports because their game's about to get destroyed on stage. It's going to be cool.
I love when we have people like that just coming on and like watching their game just get destroyed, whether it be glitches or just, wow, you optimized the route better than we did.
We didn't even know the game could do that.
And Palmer is again one of these runners who makes everything entertaining, and is going to be just always as an absolute top person. And I really, really can't wait to see them running that. It'll be very, very good.
Yep. Under our
Palmer
next
is
game,
one of the best characters, just period. I love the guy.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So under our next obscure game from that era, this is Community Palm. A game from the early PlayStation. It looks like that like early PlayStation kind of sprite-based game that only released in Japan. Like we didn't get a ton of the sprite-based games for the PS1. Just they didn't. I think they were all about like 3D in the West, whereas in Japan they got quite a few of these like sprite-based kind types of action RPG games. And visually, they like kind of aged better than some of the 3D contemporaries of theirs. Like, this game just looks fun in motion. Like, he's just constantly, like, I don't know, the running animation is real cute. She's playing, like, this little girl with this, like, witch's wand that she's just jumping and swinging. Everything is just constantly going. And it's just, it was surprisingly, like, interesting, just kind of, like, in, like, a sort of mesmerizing visual way. Like, this is a run that I think really fits the time slot that it's in like the best of ways. Like, this is a fairly late night kind of game, but it's got like a really the way the runner described it was like a very warm kind of feeling to it. It's like very colorful. It kind of, leans into this like, magical girl type aesthetic of that era. So before they started making it all dark. And it's just it's got really cute sprite work. It's really fast in motion. It's about an hour and a half, and we've had Tech on, I believe, once or twice in the last couple of years, and they usually put on a pretty good show. So I think this is a run that, like, people just tuning in at that hour will kind of find to be like, this is a pretty cool little game. And I definitely enjoyed looking at it when I was doing my research for the show.
It's one of those games that GK had me on. We were just going over, the run of show and whatnot for this. And I went to go click on it. And after like 3 seconds, I was like, oh, I'd watch an hour and a half of this easily. It's like you say, just it's a game. It looks visually gorgeous. There's an alternate timeline where way more of this visual style happens on the PS1. Stuff like this, Rayman 1, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. These absolutely gorgeous looking 2D games. And beyond that, it also just moves really, really fast. I think anybody could sit down and enjoy this one. Make sure to wake up early for Community Palm.
On to our next game, one of the other like really big RPGs of 2024, one of the biggest games of all time in its most recent iteration. We're going to be having Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the hard difficulty run, done by _Sid. So Ghoul, you being the fan who has probably talked on this channel.
Let me do my best Ben Starr impression here. Do you like Peak? Okay, I can't do the Ben Starr impression, but like, this game is incredible. I love everything about like playing it. It's gorgeous. I mean, take a look. Like, seriously,
I see you're a fan. I see your take.
The hard mode is like what the enthusiasts of the remake and Rebirth play, and what it does is it's New Game Plus, but it's almost like it takes what is an action RPG and just says, what if we try to make it almost like an action game? Like, you have all of your abilities, all of your skills, but there's no item usage. You have to. There's MP management that like doesn't exist casually because you can't just chunk a bunch of ethers out. Like, it's such a different take, and like the combat system is so flexible that it functions both as this like really well done RPG, but also like there's a lot of depth to it, almost in the same way that you would see in like like a Kingdom Hearts 2, where Kingdom Hearts 2 is almost like Devil May Cry. This is like similar in a way, but like also it's its own thing. Like, they really did such a good job of like having this action. And again, you see just how fast Sid just destroyed a boss while I'm talking, but like it's incredible. Like, I love everything about this game. I am so excited, and Sid obviously is a really good friend of mine. He's going to do such a great job with this run and the commentary for it. And yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, he sent me a clip of a pair of bosses that he just thought would be good to show. And first of all, Square spared no expense with this game.
No.
The aesthetic of this game, this is one of the prettiest games ever made. And I definitely think now that it's moved out of just being in Midgar, it's really getting to show off all of their work with that.
I like this, like, cool. This boss, by the way. Like, Elena just gets like one shot almost. Like, we went like immediately into like phase 2.
And you might say like, oh, well, a lot of that is like New Game Plus, right? Well, they're getting to like be at the max level and whatnot. No, dude, this is hard mode. It doesn't care.
It's intended to be played at this difficult. Like, you are intended to have everything when you're doing hard mode, because it is still like considered to be a challenge. Like, it's a really unique thing that like until it was explained to me and I saw it for myself, I did not realize exactly what this was and how wild it was to see this in motion.
Yeah. Big fan of the FF7 remake rebirth speedruns. There are a million things that you are doing with your hands to not just control whoever your main character is, like a Cloud or anyone, but also giving orders to Barrett and Tifa and keeping track of your ATB at all times. It's an unbelievably satisfying run to watch on the surface, and you go under the hood, it's an incredible amount of depth to what's going on. So yeah, make sure to check that out. Sid's gonna kill it.
And speaking of PS1 classic RPGs, we get to talk about the first Wild Arms, which this is going to be the game's fourth showing at Limit Break, but this is going to be the first time we've done something other than like any percent. And we've had variations of any percent, including the greatest variation of any percent back when he did beat game using demo, or be good for short. I love that initial that acronym so much. But here we're going to be getting a little bit more of the Wild Arms. This is the Platinum Trophy. So still really glitchy. Like the glitchless run of this game is like 6 hours. But going to be just exploring more of the game because there's now this new gold due to it being, the PS4 version. And just doing all of the additional objectives. It is still a very broken game, and it's very broken in like several interesting ways of like how you like just abuse your stats and like glitch items and all that. So I think it's kind of interesting because this has been like somewhat of a Limit Break staple, but it is kind of just a new way to show off a game that we haven't seen in a couple years, but it's a new way to show off a game that we haven't seen, to explore more of the game itself without like the longer, slower, 6-hour run length of a like glitchless category. And this game just has like some really interesting little bits of movement tech to it as well. It's something I've always kind of appreciated about it. And then our next game, another Square Enix Unreal Engine game. We had a little intermission here. Well, I'll go back to that in a second, but Spike, I'll leave you to talk about this one.
Yeah, we have got, it's a Kingdom Hearts title, so follow me on this one, chat. We've got Kingdom Hearts 3 Limit Cut Episode, parentheses, all pro codes, the pro is in caps, comma, level 1 critical mode, close parentheses. So did you get all that? In short, if anyone's like, there's a million Kingdom Hearts, there's a million categories, it's KH3 data org. That's what this is. They're going to fight the 13 super bosses of the game, potentially 14. We got B-Boy Cubed here. And, there's a lot of people that, beloved for a lot of the classic Kingdom Hearts, the Kingdom Hearts 1s and the 2s, Birth by Sleeps. Some people were a little more back and forth on Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm here to tell you, if you're one of those, you only played through the 80% of Kingdom Hearts 3, maybe you were slightly let down. Here's something this dev team absolutely knocked out of the freaking park, and it is in its super bosses. There's a lot of people who I knew were Cage 3 haters that went and fought the Data Org fights and said, these are better than the Cage 2 Data Org fights. The balance, the spectacle of everything, the utilization of all your different tools between your magics, your combo modifiers and everything, the ability that you have guard in the air. There's so much cool stuff going on here. But not only are they doing this on critical difficulty, the highest of the difficulties. Not only are they doing this at level 1, which means you're at level 1. That's right, we're doing math here on this show. It's also the pro codes, which adds an additional, and I don't know off the top of my head exactly what they all are. That's my fault. But effectively, these all pro codes are like an additional 12 or 13 restrictions on the run. What exactly those are, I don't know, but it came with the Limit Cut, the DLC to Cage 3. So they're going to be fighting all these bosses basically with a stick the entire time. It's going to be very, very cool to watch. Very, very mesmerizing. the amount of skill that B-Boy Cubed is going to have to put on to showcase not only the speed run, but this challenge run right here. And I'm here to tell you, if you wrote off Cage 3 back the weekend you played through it, do not miss this run. If you are a fan of just action RPG combat, this is a banger of a 1 hour on the schedule.
If I remember a couple of the pro codes, one of them is like no items, I know. One of them is like you just have a perpetual HP drain on your health, so you just go to 1 HP as the fight goes along. Like, they're unhinged, basically. Kingdom Hearts speeders are literally just, they're unhinged in what they will do sometimes to do this stuff.
It's very much... I feel like when people were initially doing these sorts of challenge runs, like, dude, you're not supposed to have all the pro codes on during these boss fights. Also, I believe the Yozura. I think there might be another sexy little. It doesn't. If there's no cats, there's no dogs, there's no fishing, nothing like that. But you can make them fight probably the hardest boss in Kingdom Hearts history in Yozura as a 14th boss on top of the rest of this ridiculousness.
So leading off into the most active of genres, we're going to head into a pair of games that are going to be of the more strategic of genres, which we have 2 Fire Emblems for you this time, back to back. Both of them fairly on the shorter side, but we're starting off here with the remake of Fire Emblem 2, Fire Emblem Shadows of Valencia, or Echoes.
Yeah, this is a really interesting Fire Emblem. So one of the things that's like kind of unique about Shadows of Valencia is that like, because it's a remake of Fire Emblem 2, they didn't really know what they wanted to do with Fire Emblem at that point. So this game has a lot of unique things. It has random encounters and like things you just don't expect to see in a Fire Emblem game, and these actually matter in the speedrun, unlike, you know, something like maybe like a Sacred Stones where you can do extra fights for funsies if you really want to. But no, they actually they exist, they're going to matter, and Kirby has to root around them. This is a Fire Emblem that you don't necessarily get to say, I'm going to warp my person halfway across the map, they're going to like walk forward, all the enemies are going to run into them and die, which is going to get me a bunch of EXP, and then I'm going to kill the boss and then take the throne. No, you have to like react to different scenarios and different things, and it really becomes a much more, a different skill set that I don't think any other Fire Emblem really does the same way. And Kirby is going to be, you know, Kirby is like the Fire Emblem runner for me, and you know, his ability to root these games and being able to see some of that rooting ability demonstrated on the fly is super exciting. This run's going to be incredible.
Yeah, Kirby's always good value and always entertaining. Yep. And yeah, I'm really it'll be really good. Be a really fun run.
Yep. I will show up to literally watch any Kirby Master Run, whether he's running any of his Sonic games, a lot of the other series that he runs, or here in the Fire Emblems. He just has a way to be able to describe what's going on screen really well, but also in not an overly technical terms or anything. It's fun the whole time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and especially for a run like this, it's going to be so cool because, like I said, we do get to see Kirby's thought process a lot more than we might in other Fire Emblems, and he is so good at explaining what these routes are and what they do.
Yeah. He often will take like little bits and pieces out of it. He'll go out of his way to say like, okay, this is a really hard map to parse. So I'll give you a little bit of information of like, I'm doing this now so that these enemies here, like I deal with them before they become a problem later. And like he does a lot of these really cool things like that with his runs. Something I always respect, and sign of somebody who knows what they're doing and knows like, you know, the importance of communicating to the audience as well.
Yeah, it's a showcase at the end of the day that we're doing.
The other Fire Emblem we have is for you is Shadow Dragon, and if you can tell me what the heck happens in this clip, I guess I will give you a cookie.
Oh man.
So here is 2 maps in about the span of a minute. So that was Warp. This category. He even just submitted the category as Warp. So it's listed as Warp.
There's Warp.
He broke this one. Stuff. He's just menuing. And then now he's just positioning his units. He's stealing, or he's killing this thief here to get a warp staff, putting it in the convoy, sending his mage that can use it to get it. He's going to take it out of the convoy so that he has more warp, And Warp is just kind of lets you move Marth to wherever you want. So just gonna send Marth straight to the boss.
What?
Or straight to like the capture part. It's so silly. Like this game can be done in about 16 minutes.
Wow.
And Kirby's been offering this game for like almost a decade. And I think they've generally taken the longer meteor runs. I think they're just parlaying this on top of Shadow Dragon or on top of Echoes. So it's like Fire Emblem 1 and 2, just kind of back to back in reverse order in their most recent incarnations. Yeah, this game just flies by.
Brilliant.
I like Kirby even saying in chat, it's 14 minutes now. Where do you find
It's getting shorter by the day.
We might get this run in, or it might be about 12 by the time the actual marathon happens.
I mean, he was saying he was working on RNG manipulation. I'm like, how do you save time by manipulating this?
It's like, we're already warping, dog. What more do you want from me? Let's go, girl.
Continuing on to our next game, we're going to another blast from the past, the NES version of King's Quest V. We've had, I believe this was a Sierra game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That sounds right.
And we've had plenty of them in the Quest for Glory series, but I don't believe we've had any King's Quest on the channel. If we did, it was probably like a Questing for Glory type marathon, ironically enough. But showing its debut in the main marathon proper. And Tim, you want to take this one?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, this is the first time we've had King's Quest on the main marathon, but I do know that the runner of this one is the fantastic David TKI, who has got a bit of a reputation, shall we say, for this sort of game. They have run several Quest for Glory games previously at Limit Break, and for last year's Limit Break, they also ran Death Knights of Krynn, which is kind of similar, maybe not. But this is the fantastic, and I use the word cautiously there, King's Quest V. That's going to be, but it's got a twist this time. This is the NES version. Most of these games, you tend to see the PC versions. So this is the NES version from 1990. So again, we're going back a little bit here. The NES version of this game is particularly interesting because there are quite a few tricks and skips that are NES exclusive in this one, including an item skip and use of items in the wrong order. So sort of sequence breaking of the items there. And honestly, this game, if you've not seen these games, they have a bit of an acquired taste, I would say, but they're definitely something different. And what I love about them is the historical importance of them, because you're going way back here to the sort of beginning of sort of text-based RPGs, and then you're going forward to these more sort of hybrid RPGs, and then you're moving forward to your console sort of RPGs. So this is a really, really good historical run here, I think. And it's also quite a funny, interesting story too. And I think this was going to be great. And as I said, David's done quite a lot of runs for Limit Break in the past, primarily Quest for Glory. Always good value again. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Really, really looking forward to this one.
And we'll round off the day with a game that requires some really interesting context. So here we have Boktai 2, Solar Boy Django. And so this is a game by Hideo Kojima to start with. It is a top-down isometric action game for the Game Boy Advance. We have the cart on here for a reason. If you're familiar with this, Kojima, being just Kojima, the avant-garde type of dude he is, came up with a Game Boy Advance action RPG that has a solar sensor on it, meaning that the game is affected if you are playing the game in sunlight. Obviously, we're running this at like midnight local time indoors, and also Denver weather is pretty unpredictable, so I think the sunlight thing. To get around this, Drago Dan is going to be, who's the runner for this game, good friend of mine, awesome guy, runs all sorts of things, but he's bringing a UV flashlight to abuse for the solar mechanics. Obviously, that's kind of something you have to be a little careful with, because you have to, so you only use it when you're absolutely necessary for the run. It makes this the only speed game in existence, perhaps, that requires the application of sunscreen on your hands. Like, obviously there's a lot of ways to be careful, but it is it is a like little bit of protection from like UV light. So you do have to be careful with it. But it is an awesome game. Like, and Draco's been like ironing out like just cutting down seconds from the time of this game. Like he's saved, I think, like 3 or 4 minutes in the last like few months to last year or so. And he's been on something like a world tour, I would say, of this game, having run it at like, I think he ran it at like one of the EU marathons, like ESA, and then he ran it at Australia Speedrun Marathon, and then now he's running it here at RPG Limit Break. So
Actually
really
making his
peculiar,
rounds. That's so cool.
really peculiar game, but he's definitely been very dedicated at it, and I think it'll be a really awesome showing.
I've got to shout out Draco here. Absolute fantastic runner, absolute gent, and really, really, really good. And this will be entertaining in every measure. It'll be absolutely fantastic.
Great taste in music, by the way, and I don't just say that because him and I recommend albums to each other all the time. Yep. I like how he's saying, event staff, please provide me some sunscreen. Nah, you got to bring that yourself, man. Oh wait,
Get that on the plane, man.
Oh wait, he's from England. They don't sell that there.
We don't need it.
All right, so we're going to be going to intermission here.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Apologize for the flashlights. We're going to be going to intermission here in just a bit, but just to recap our runs on Wednesday, I separated these two slides. Might as well just go over it here. We'll be starting off the night with East 10 Nordics run by some scrub, followed by an Acronox run by Palmer, who is just a delight. We got Community Palm by Techon, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We're going to be doing Hard New Game Plus by the Cid, and then finally the Platinum Trophy for Run for Wild Arms. Before we cut into like the midday, afternoon, evening of the day, and we're going to be kicking in that off with Kingdom Hearts 3 into a pair of Fire Emblem runs by Kirby. I guess the H from his name got warped here from all the warping. But we'll be doing those 2 Fire Emblem runs of Echoes, and then Shadow Dragon into King's Quest V, into finally closing out the evening. We'll be doing Boktai 2 Solar Boy Django as we head into Thursday. So we're going to be sending it over to intermission here. Again, as I mentioned at the start of the stream, we do have volunteer applications open, and we're going to have our good friends Ashen and Bob the Ninja Goldfish talking to you about volunteering.
Hello. Have you been enjoying the week so far? Just the 4 of you. It's been a wild ride. That everything you've been talking about. It's been amazing.
Oh yeah. No, it's such a fun schedule.
Yeah,
It's been a
I think
pleasure.
the games committee did an absolutely killer job with it.
Absolute bang.
And we've only sat here and talked about half of it so far.
Right?
And I've already got like 15 runs I've written down. I need to watch that when it is on. So
I would like to point out I was personally offended when you were all talking about how the oldest person in the stream is Tim and I'm in the wings.
I'm older than you, though.
Dude, it doesn't feel that way sometimes.
Bob's like, that's not possible. I invented
On the
video games. You can.
On the inside.
Also, for all of those of you out there who every time I'm on the host desk or I'm in the pre-show or I'm doing a bit with the content team goes, wow, that guy sure sounds like an English Spike Vegeta. We're not the same person.
Officially, we're both in the same room at the same time. They're using magic.
I admit to no magicry.
There is
We're doing the Austin Powers. We've got like Spike is playing Bob, but like doing a really bad accent to join in with it.
Spike is one of the Spike is one of the reasons I'm still in the speedrunning community. He was one of the first people at AGDQ 2014 when I first went that started to embrace the people that weren't speedrunners, and I really appreciate him for that, to be honest. So
I appreciate you for we all appreciate you sticking around, bud. You are a gift to the community. You truly are. So.
You are really appreciated, Bob. Absolutely. So much.
Don't give him too much. His ego's gonna get bigger than it is.
All right, you suck.
Spike, apparently the chat want to hear your best Bob impression.
Oh. Hello, I'm Bob, and
bugger off.
They bug off. They told me I sound like a British not
What the heck was that?
nailed it. Wise
Perfect. No notes.
2/3 of this room is just like, nope, absolutely not. They just gone.
Everyone else is just like, yep, Spike's lost it.
They would cast.
I want you to know there are no less
Sorry
than
to bother
two
you,
Scots.
but-
I want you to know there are no less than two Scots in this call, and I think we're both offended at that. We have no reason to be.
So funny.
Oh my gosh.
I insulted everyone.
All right, so as someone who has been preparing for this intermission, if you guys had to recommend two games from the first half of the week, which would you pick?
Obviously,
I'm
I'm not
gonna
allowed to pick my own runs. Otherwise, I'd just say Partners in Time and East 10. Probably the ones that I'm like most interested in. Golden Sun. Golden Sun is just, I mean, it's one of my favorite games, but I think that, like I mentioned, that run is just awesome in general. And then if you want like I said, if you want one that's like that you haven't heard of but you want to surprise you, Etoile Princess was definitely the one that stood out to me a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, Metaphor. Like, come on. I don't even need to go deeper. Like, you should watch Metaphor if you're only watching one run. You should watch them all, but you should watch Metaphor.
I do have to sleep at some point.
Dude, it's such a weakness we have. Can we just work that out of our system?
I know, right? Can we get like Humans 2.0? We fixed the sleep glitch.
I could easily say Golden Sun as well. There's honestly like all these runs are fantastic. I've got to shout out FF7 Rebirth. I really just think the combat of those games are second to none. And especially when you realize everything that's going on under the hood, so good. And I'll give a shout outs to my, Kingdom Hearts 3. Obviously, Limicut, Data Organization, sign me up.
I really wish I could play the newer Final Fantasy games. I really do.
Yeah. So
my hands just don't do that very well, unfortunately.
you're pushing every button on the controller
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah.
Actually swapping between the character stuff, it's so much.
Yeah. They're very, very pretty games. I know that much, but I would love to be able to play them. Love to be able to play them. Oh. So, should we get on with... sorry, go ahead.
Well, Tim, what was your recommendation?
Yes, I'm going to be a bit boring and go with Kingdom Hearts as well, purely because I do think that like Spike was saying, the skill for that is really, really good. But I'm also going to go for another high skill run, especially if we get the incentive, and that's Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah.
I definitely think that will be absolutely fantastic. And as I say, that is a great run. I've seen it, so it's really, really good, and I can't wait to see it again.
Awesome.
Yeah. So should we get on with the volunteering portion so the four of you can have a little bit of a break?
I think so.
Let's do it.
No worries.
Okay. All right. They're all muted. They're all off on their own adventures now. It's just you and me here, Bob.
Ooh.
Which is terrifying for everybody involved.
Especially the people who run the channel, because they never know what I'm going to say. Actually, they know exactly what I'm going to talk about.
I mean, yeah, you're pretty good at that. Anyway.
So, yes, we're here to talk a little bit about the volunteer situation. The reason we're doing that is we're taking advantage of the fact that we have a show on the last day that volunteering is open, basically. It closes at 11:59 p.m. this evening. And just wanted to come on and remind everyone to get their forms in. Just tell you a little bit about like things we may need a few more people on.
Yeah.
Things like that. We're not overly hurting for volunteers in too many departments.
Yeah,
we
y'all.
always, and I do mean always, need more on-site volunteers.
Mhm.
Mainly because the more volunteers we have in a department, the less shifts we have to give to people.
Yep.
That means they can go off and enjoy more of the marathon.
Absolutely.
So don't take me saying we're not overly hurting as we wouldn't welcome you.
We're just saying that,
But-
you know, if we had up to like 75% of the attendees were volunteers, we'd be happy with that. Maybe even more.
Mhm, for sure.
Have we not actually hit that?
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't actually looked at the numbers. But
Yeah. So if you are looking for specific departments that need some help,
Mhm.
if you're on site, the safety team could use more volunteers. That would be fantastic. The cleaning team could use some more volunteers. And we could always use more in the audio and stage tech areas.
yeah.
Do
I mean-
not be intimidated. I mean, I can let Ashen speak to audio since that's one of his specialties.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
if you're looking at my camera here and you see this thing next to you and you're terrified of it, that's kind of a reasonable reaction if you've never seen it or something like it before. But we do have a really good training system or system of documentation of orientations on site and trainings and support here to get people comfortable with doing what you need to do on this kind of machine to make audio happen. Similar for stage tech, where you're helping the runners set up their consoles, making sure they're logged into Steam properly and the Steam notifications are off. We have a checklist of items that you can go through to make it really simple, break it down, and make sure that you know exactly what is expected of you in any of these roles, even if you've never done them before. And even if you have done them before, I'm constantly checking the checklist because I'm like, oh yeah, I keep forgetting that thing. I should do that. So
We also, to talk a little bit about safety team, people get a little worried that they're going to have to get in and involved in things. Everything routes through a hierarchy in the safety team. So you would just be walking around making sure people are wearing their badges, things like that. You often are just sort of moving in, making sure everyone's sort of behaving themselves. And if you see anything out of order, you can report it to the appropriate people, basically. Cleaning is things like making sure like there aren't pizza boxes left around, and make sure that anyone who's been using the rooms for things have cleaned up behind themselves. And it's not
I will say,
not everything that you. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, cleaning team. We do have, obviously, we are in a post-2020 world, and so we have a pretty robust health policy, and the cleaning team is one of the cornerstones of that. Is just the cleaning volunteers are so essential and so important. We thank everybody who has done it in the past, everybody who's volunteered to do it now, and anybody who will hopefully help sign up to help with us with that for this event as well.
Yeah, it's just a. And one of the things I will always, I'll always say is that if you volunteer as part of the event, it almost, even if you're just volunteering as like check-in or someone who's helping with stream tech or donation station, it really does help you feel more connected to, like, take ownership a little bit of everything we achieve in the marathon, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's all of us started out as just kind of entry level volunteer, however many years ago it was when we were able to first come and start volunteering, and now we've taken ownership is not the right word, but because of that sense of ownership, as opportunities opened up for us to step farther and farther forward to help more, they were easy to step into just because of the nature and the feel the community that exists, and like Bob said, like that sense of pride that you get in the jobs that you're doing. So all the information you need for the volunteering to find the form to volunteer, you can find on our website, which is rpglimitbreak.com.
The other, there is 2 more things I wanted to shout out role-wise for remote volunteers.
Oh, yes.
Which is our social media department, which really needs people. Like, we don't really have enough people to staff it for the entire week at this point. Do not be overly worried about anything. Even if you don't have social media experience, we have a really good team over there that can train you and give you documentation and everything that you will need to know what to do. And we always have first timers, and they pick it up really, really, really quickly. The other thing that I would mention is our remote donation station role. Unlike other marathons, we like to take advantage of our remote volunteers to do donation station as much as possible. Mainly because that then frees up the people who are on site to do everything else. So please, if you have an interest in either of those, go ahead and apply for those. The other thing I will mention is for every department, and I do mean every department. The more people that are willing to volunteer for overnight shifts, the better. Because usually there's about 10 people and they're on shift every day. Which isn't optimal, let's be honest. So if you are willing to work like the 11 to 3 shift or the 3 to 7 a.m. shift, we really need people in those shifts as well in every department.
And as a reminder, the event is in Denver, Colorado, so it'll be following Mountain Daylight Time. So if your sleep schedule is already something that kind of aligns with what overnight is, and you're coming in to be on site, that's fantastic, even with remote. Yeah. So and we call it the overnight because it is overnight for the event itself. But if that already aligns with how your sleep schedule works, that'd be a great fit.
And the last thing I want to bring up is our remote hosting. Just want to point out for anyone that is interested in getting your remote hosting stuff in, make sure that you are aware that we only pair remote hosts with remote games. So there are a limited number of slots available for remote hosting, and they are usually in non-US friendly time zones. So be them from the Europe, UK, Australia, Japan, whatever, usually in non-friendly time zones. So just bear that in mind if you are looking to do remote hosting. Other than that, it is just thank you to everyone that has already applied. Bear with us. It's going to be like a month of all of my amazing role coordinators working their tuckuses off to get the schedule ready, to get the documentation ready. Nothing makes me prouder than seeing the team I've put together do their jobs as well as they do it. And that includes everyone that ends up working under them at the event as well. It really does. It really does make me very proud of everything. So I greatly appreciate everyone that helps that happen. Really. Oh.
And come from the other side, may I just say, you do a fantastic job of that as well, Bob. You are a great person wrangler, and as I surprise bring in the other the rest of the cast, they're all going to say the same thing. I'm almost certain.
And
I've already said it. I've already said it. But Bob, thank you for everything.
Vanny
We
says
believed
that's
that
the
even off stream. We were all like, yeah, go Bob.
Vanny says that's the nicest thing he's ever heard Bob say indirectly about me. I've said much nicer things directly to you, Vanny, and you know it.
Well, yeah, this was the indirect thing. That's the way.
So just to reconfirm, if you head over to rpglimitbreak.com/volunteers, I do believe it is, then there you should be able to find the information that you need to apply and a link to the form.
And once again,
Everyone here that you see on screen has at one time volunteered for us at Limit Break.
Yeah.
Even Spike, even though he's not been here in person in a couple of years.
Dude, they had me on audio for a run. Fun fact. What a terrible idea. What a truly awful idea. But you could be that next mistake. You viewer in the chat. You could be the next fire that Bob has to put out.
There's a
seriously.
like-
Go ahead, Bob.
There's a reason that I don't deal with any of the tech stuff.
Yeah.
And that reason is there's a reason I'm friends with PJ.
There it is.
Oh boy! I just realized I was unmuted.
you just realized. Okay.
I just realized I was muted. See, audio disasters. Even though they're totally my fault, I'm still blaming Spike.
That was me. Yeah.
It was
I
all
was muted
Spike.
in
It was
Discord.
all
That's
Spike.
right.
So yeah, once again,
No,
that closes.
I just hadn't pushed the button on my mic.
Yeah. Volunteer forms close at midnight tonight. Midnight in what time zone, Bob?
Eastern. So
Eastern.
a
Great.
little under 6 hours from now.
Unfortunately, it's in my time zone so that I can be awake to close the form.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's so much sense. I really do want to promote. A lot of people are going to sit there and be like, I don't know if I'm qualified. I know they've been like talking up like listen, get into it. You'll learn along the way. At the end of the day, it is an event of people just with passion and love for the community. There
at
is
the end
not
of
a
the
better
day-
way. Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead.
No, you first, Spike.
There is not a better way to get out to one of these events and truly start developing a lot of really, really great relationships and ingratiate yourself with the rest of the community than through volunteer roles. Everybody who's ever been to RPG Limit Break, GDQ, a lot of these other events, the first thing they did was they were on donation station. They were on audio. They helped press one button in the back over a 2-hour shift, and they got to know someone back there. Whatever it might be, hosting, any of this sort of stuff. This is the number one way to give yourself just a little bit of busy work throughout the week and get to know a lot of great people.
I showed up to AGDQ 2014 knowing one person, and it was Railcoon because I'd been in the chat. And there was no real structure for anyone doing anything back in those days. I think you'll remember. And I spent the next 6 days sat on donation station, mainly because it was the best seat in the house because you were right next to the runners. And ever since that's how I got to know Volagin. It's how I got to know Spike. It's how I got to know Broman, how I got to know so many people. And they're the people that came to me at the end of the event and they were like, I hope you come back next year. Like, Spike literally came to me at the end, like, as my wife came to pick me up at the end. It was like when we were doing, it was like 7 of us left in the bonus stream, and I had to get Spike stopped what he was doing, came over and gave me a big hug, and like that just cemented me. And it was all because I took the time to volunteer. It is the best way to get to know people if you need to know people.
Volunteers make the event work. It literally can't work without volunteers. So you want to be a part of this community? There's your number one ticket right there.
Yeah.
And you will
Can I-
feel that much more the money we make for charity. You are part of that. So
Can I just add to that as somebody who has obviously volunteered for Limit Break on site and remotely, and honestly, it's always an absolute amazing experience. I remember the last time I was on site, I was actually really struggling with a couple of the tech things, and yet everybody was so good. I was doing interviews, I was given so many opportunities, and everybody is so nice. And honestly, as Bob and Spike have said, honestly, for anybody that's interested in at all, even if you're just watching the event and you think, oh, I'm not sure if I could do that. Yes, you can. You get the support, you get the help. It's so much fun, and honestly, it unlocks the community so much. It gives you so many contacts and you get to meet so many amazing people. I wouldn't know all these amazing people without having volunteered for Limit Break. Yep. So honestly, it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, and as somebody who's been volunteering with Limit Break since 2016, there are people that I met the very most recent event, RPG Limit Break 24, who I still keep in touch with. It's not like the first event you meet all these people. It's a constant thing. Like every event, I see new people that I'm like.
It's one of the cool things about being a smaller scale
with.
Event, right? It's the fact that we're a much more intimate event in size, that you get to know people a little easier. You can spend time eating with them at, say, dinner or breakfast. And when you're going out to dinner with a bunch of people, you're not going out to dinner with 30 different people from one games community. You are going to dinner with there's a bunch of people just sat around in the practice room that we're all going out. Let's go meet that guy.
Yeah, the classic speedrunner way to make friends is half the people are standing in a semicircle talking about whatever thing that has nothing to do with even video games.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone for letting us cut in on your review stream of the schedule. Everyone who has volunteered in the past, thank you. Everyone that is volunteering this year, thank you. I cannot wait until May 18th when everything kicks off. And if I may leave everyone by saying the words of the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and all those beyond that spectrum, please be excellent to each other. Party on, friends.
Cheers, Bob.
Thank you very much to Bob. Thank you very much to Ashen.
Thank you, Ashen.
Still keeping the stream running. Bob can go off and do whatever he wants with his evening. Ashen's over here I gotta sit and listen to these nerds for another hour. Right. So where we left off, we're heading into Thursday morning of the May 22nd schedule worth of runs. And we're going to be starting this off with Shorty's Kingdom 2. As the name might kind of suggest, it's a very short run. This is actually entering into, we have something of a quasi-silly block. And this is more or less kicking it off. So if you...
Hold up, we got some technical difficulties. It's a whole block of a bunch of silly stuff. Shortest Kingdom 2. Spike was saying Cthulhu's His Christmas. We have Maka Maka, Gigi Mago. Just so many weird and just strange video games that kind of defy explanation for some of them. Cthulhu's His Christmas, I believe this is a Flash game, actually, if I remember correctly, looking at the...
Shortest Kingdom is the Flash game.
Or Shortest Kingdom, sorry. What did I say? I hear you here. I don't know if you're going to the stream or not.
Yeah.
We're playing charades with Vegeta on stream right now.
Oh dear.
How did we lose just Spike? He's loud enough that he could pick up into my microphone from across the country.
I mean, he kind of is right now.
Happening.
I still don't have him on stream. Nope. Still no.
Testing 1 2 3. That probably sounds bad.
That sounds awful.
Testing 1 2 3.
There we go.
How about this?
That's good. That's good there.
Yo, we good?
Yep. How do you like seeing how the sausage is made stream? How's that been?
There we go.
Are we back?
This is why we have good tech volunteers.
This is unrelated, by the way. Well, it is related, but it's unrelated to what we're supposed to be talking about. But shout out to the time that Spike was on stream at Limit Break, and the tech had no way to get him to the proper volume other than to just mute his headset and his mic, because every other mic, including the floor mics, was picking him up so loudly that they did not need his actual mic to be on during the thing. I kid you not, I was there. It was literally Spike's mic is muted, everyone else's mic was live. Spike was the loudest person on the stream by a mile.
The RPG Limit Break owners bust into the room and say, "It's gone nuclear." We have one solution, and they just pull the plug out of the wall. This will work, trust me. Anyways, so yeah, Silly Block. If you couldn't tell from games like Shorty's Kingdom 2, Cthulhu Saves Christmas, Maka Maka 0194771%, and another one, I'll pronounce that game when we get to it. But Shorty's Kingdom 2, run by the one, the only Drumboardist. Now, hear me out. This run looks super cute and everything, but I'm just going to give a massive shout outs to Drumboardist. I will watch anything this man runs because he has run such classics. The all-time RPGs like Dragon Ball Super 3 or something for the Super Nintendo, where on his layout, it's a retelling of the Saiyan and the Frieza arcs. Believe it or not, with the name Spike Vegeta, I know something about Dragon Ball Z. And in place of his webcam, he just had Yamcha in his classic stance of dead in the dirt. Drumboardist only has the best taste in video games. There's not another runner out there who I think would be a better kickoff to a silly block of sorts. Now, in his description of this game, we are hearing some text that normally we would be quite worried about. Like, it's possible that during one of these stages, his gear is so bad, he might have to grind that level. And when I say grind, not once, not twice, 7+ times to cancel out any of how crappy his gear might be so he can just be on level for the next stage. You might say, oh no, I don't know if we should have a run like this in the marathon. It's Drumboardist, though, and we're kicking off Silly Block. This is going to be the perfect kind of energy to bring to it. It is an any percent incentive with the all stages, and after hearing that pitch, that's all I want to see, gamers. So get them in, another great incentive. Shorty's Kingdom 2, kicking off quasi-Silly Block.
So going into the Silly Block equivalent of Persona, I'm not kidding. So this is Cthulhu Saves Christmas. This is a game made by Zeboid Games. They made a game in 2017 called Cosmic Star Heroine, which was made in Unity. It was kind of like, they'd normally made like these really short, sweet, funny kinds of games, including Cthulhu Saves the World, the predecessor to this game, which I had like influence of about 40 to 45% of the route. And it's one of my like fondest speedrun memories is that game. This game's kind of like a spiritual success that they made as like a, they spent a lot of time and energy on this like fairly big indie game, and they had the assets, like they'd already programmed like the battle system and stuff. So they used some of this stuff from Cosmic Star Heroine and put it into this game, but it is a game where Cthulhu, yes, the see him on the cover there, that Cthulhu must save Christmas. There's so many Christmas puns. It has like a parody social link system from like Persona because that was what the developer was into at the time. It's got a really, really good sprite work for what it is. And it's just a very cute, simple, kind of comedic, silly video game. And you go around fighting all of like the demons that are ruining Christmas, like Krampus, if you're familiar with that old tale. Jack Frost is like one of the earlier bosses, but I don't mean Eho Jack Frost. I mean like a more sinister Jack Frost.
You mean
it's a silly
the
game.
Most evil of evil.
He inserts his party without your permission. It's a cute game. I'm genuinely curious how Alfina beats this game the way that they do so this is on the medium difficulty, which like any percent on the easy difficulty, like it's a lot more forgiving, but you can just bypass encounters in this run, and I have no idea how you get the stats to beat endgame. So just like in peering into it, this game has a really interesting little combat system despite what it is. Like, you have very limited resources and enemies. I believe, knowing how Zeboid games tend to work, gets stronger with every turn. So you have to work fast to beat these bosses, or you will get stomped. So, silly game. Really curious about the speed run. Going off of difficulty into what might be one of the easiest games on this marathon, and certainly one of the strangest. This is Maka Maka. I want you to know the reason for this particular screenshot being on the screen here. I'll tell you the story behind how we know about this game. In 2018, I submitted for a convention to do a panel on the history of really bad RPGs. And so naturally we get into stuff like Virtual Hide-Lied, Hosio Miruhito, games that have been in, limit break schedules like Awful Block before. And I see something about this game that was unfinished. Like, they ran out of budget for this game. This game has like PS1 level loads on encounters, despite being a SNES game, where like one of the perks of SNES RPGs is encounter rate is like really fast loads. Now, this game is unfinished, and it is super weird in like the funniest way possible. I saw this screenshot. I'm like, I need to find this game, and I have it in here. I think it's in here somewhere. Yes. I bought it off of eBay. I bought it off of eBay for like $9. And I brought it to Limit Break 2019. And DeWolf was just like, he fell in love with the game almost immediately and developed a translation for the game because it's sadly not in English. So this run is going to be story time with DeWolf. If you're wondering about the category, it is a debug code that turns off the encounter rate. It's still a pretty easy run for a lot of its runtime, but it turns like a 5.5 hour really difficult run to like a 2.5 hour just romp through one of the silliest, most charming games ever put on the Super Famicom.
Yeah, it is. Like, this screenshot is only the beginning. I will put it that way. It's actually kind of funny. From what I understand, this game also does have like a weirdly decent cult following in Japan for just doing weird shit, for lack of a better term. Pardon my French. Like, there's no better term for what it is. Like, you gotta call it what it is. But like, it does that so well and so effectively that like it almost has this weird cult following despite being objectively unfinished. The devs even said they released it because it was release it or go bankrupt and not release it. They said, well, I'm not going to not release the video game if I can. They still went bankrupt, by the way. It didn't change anything.
Let's give him a shot. Give him a shot. Yeah.
I do want to say also, good DeWolf again is always a fantastic runner to watch, and specializes, I think, in the more obscure titles, shall we say. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
3 hours DeWolf story.
I love runners like GK and DeWolf who just see a game like this and go, oh yeah.
I mean, if I can give you some context, if you haven't seen DeWolf do a Hoshi, I imagine it's going to be a very similar energy, just with a slightly better video game.
Slightly.
But this game has its own things, and DeWolf's got a translated script, so we're gonna get the full Maka Maka story. Whatever the full Maka Maka story actually is, and if that's the thing you actually want. I mean,
who knows?
That is also that's another question. Actually, is DeWolf going to be able to inhale enough over the course of 3 hours? Like, are we going to have like the supplemental oxygen on the side to make sure DeWolf is getting enough air to?
We are in Denver.
Function?
We might need that. All right. So this is our silly game. Going off of a 3 hour like marathon of a silly game. We have GG Mago Old and Young RPG Mini. Ghoul, you can explain this one.
I mean, the name itself is just wild, but you could go on Steam. It's on PC, but it's this really cute and really short indie RPG. It's got some really lovely sprite work. The menuing kind of looks a lot almost like a Lufia 2, where it's got like kind of the little like branching off menus. There's like some the movement kind of reminds me almost like, I mean, it's a really bad comparison, but like it's got like kind of a dungeon crawler feel, almost like an Etrian Odyssey, while also being this like other. It's a really cute short game with one of the strangest names I think I've ever seen. Like, what even it like? But yeah, I really enjoyed my little peek at it. I'm really excited to see the full run to go with the Silly Games block.
Yeah, it's I think it's also it's got a cool little wrinkle to it that like it unironically has Dark Souls leveling in it. Where when you have like your little leveling sessions, you build up your levels effectively. And you say, okay, man, I've got 8 levels. I'm gonna put them into health or strength or whatever the different stats are for it. And that sort of stuff is always interesting to me because it's not just a flat, slight increase everywhere. It says, all right, do I just mega pump my damage? Do I need a little bit of survivability? Because it is a turn-based RPG at the end of the day. And I mean, I don't know about the rest of you. I always get a little bit nostalgic for just OG green and gray, whatever it is, Game Boy. Just the visuals of it. It's always very, very comfy to me. So, yeah. Interested to see what might be the shortest RPG limit break run of all time, unless Kirby Master gets there first with Fire Emblem 11. So,
Its competition actually is coming right up. So right after this, we're going out of Silly Block, but we're staying on the short theme. We got Dragon Quest II for the Famicom.
No.
Or no, the MSX. That's
nice.
The Famicom would be a much.
They submitted Famicom, and then they took the MSX version.
I had to look this one up because I was like, okay, Dragon Quest, obviously, really, okay, sure, they released it on PC in Japan, that tracks, that makes sense. And then I looked at the game. Oh my god, this game was not meant to run on the MSX. It is not a very pretty looking game, but it's very funny to watch. So it starts off, I don't know if you know this, Dragon Quest in Japan did not have a save function. It used a password system.
Oh god, what?
So this run starts with the runner entering a password that is going to do some funky stuff to the game on top of the game itself being a very funky version of Dragon Quest 2. It is a version of Dragon Quest 2 that exists. It's really funny to watch. Like, character sprites will be walking around and they'll take the background out with them. They'll just make a black background behind sprites that can't fill with the background that's supposed to be there. So you'll see like overworld NPCs walking and just erasing the background as they're going. The screen can only like scroll at like a certain like frame rate. So like it's really, really janky, and it's going to be done in about 20 minutes thanks to the Moyamoto password stuff. It is something to watch, for lack of a better term.
And we talked about Pokemon earlier with Cassette Beast. Now we get our first actual Pokemon. And this is also a really short broken one.
So I don't know if anybody's like, how many people are super familiar, but like generally when you see Pokemon done at marathons, there's a reason that they usually will have a glitchless term at the end of them. That's because when you are allowed to do anything in Pokemon, you can do anything in Pokemon.
Break.
So this is the Japanese version of Crystal, and that is not a misnomer. That is a 20-minute estimate for it. So we're going to be doing some shenanigans at some point, and we're going to be getting to the end of the game in a way that was not intended. I believe like the any percent glitchless for Crystal is still in the 3-hour range. We're not bothering.
It's a chunkier run, yeah.
Yeah, so this is closer to like again like the Final Fantasy 3 glitchless or that type of thing. We're going to be doing some kind of a thing. We're going to break the game, and then all of a sudden we're going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know exactly what the method is for the Japanese Crystal version that does this, but we will find out together, and I encourage you to watch the run because these are always really interesting. It's just like neat to see this, game that clearly was not intended, and you can just do strange things that, because these games are relatively simple in their programming, you can just exploit things in ways that weren't meant to be. It's really cool. If you haven't seen a run like this, I highly encourage watching it.
I love that we have Cotton doing both of these runs. We've got our quasi-silly block into our just busted as heck block with Cotton doing, two of pretty well-beloved RPGs in Dragon Quest II and Pokemon Crystal. And they're going to be done playing those two games in under an hour. So, be a good time.
Yeah, so as we rounding off our 4 silly block games here, Shorty's Kingdom 2, Indus Cthulhu Saves Christmas, and Maka Maka. God, just the category name always makes me laugh. It's not a number, it's a passcode, but it just, the numerical, nature of it just makes people think, how much of this game were you going to do?
And what's the lore on that? How did we find the passcode? Was that just a known thing?
Know.
Or did No Wolf reverse engineer this? What is the story?
I think somebody found it in Japan because there was an established route before No Wolf had gotten to it. There's a runner by the name of Niku Goemon who had done a lot of work with it for many years. And I want to say, I assume the name is probably some sort of numerical code because a lot of because numbers often correspond to sounds in certain code for Japanese. And then we're into Jijimago Old and Young RPG Mini, 80% in 20 minutes, into another passcode, Litchi Run, Dragon Quest II, into finally Pokemon Crystal, where you'll beat the game so quick that I know the North American one is some shenanigans in one of the early towns. That's all I know. So I'm curious on that one. Yep. But now we're getting out of the broken stuff and into the pretty. So Legends of Mana. This is going to be run by Fonus. Typo on the name there. But it's going to be all main storylines, which I believe hasn't been run at the marathon since 2018. So this is going to be on the remaster and at quite a reduced estimate from the last time. I want to say last time was $345. So.
Yeah, interesting to see they've brought this all the way down under 3.5 hours. I know Phone is talking about it. They recently found, I guess, a new sort of skip near the end of the most popular of the 3 routes. The 3 routes being Dragon, Fairy, and the Jumi route. Somehow there's some sort of skip they found near the end of the Dragon route, the most popular one. And I guess that's enough to get them down to a 325. This is also a remastered version of Legend of Mana, so maybe there's some faster loads compared to the PS1 version and whatnot. But at its base, gamers, y'all should check this one out because this is, to this day, and I've played, this game's 25 years old. This was 1999 when this sucker was released. This is still one of the prettiest video games I've ever seen in my life. All the sprite work they do, all the backgrounds and everything. It's got a fantastic ethereal soundtrack on top of all of that. Big, sweeping, beautiful stuff. And the combat's just fun to watch. A lot of stun locks on bosses they're able to go for. Just clean action RPG style combat. Every time they finish a fight, they have to route out where all the item drops are because you can't actually move out of the battle until you get all the items. But sometimes it's actually better to let an item that is too far away just despawn. So they got to balance that with their EXP routing. And just the fact that you're going to be seeing all 3 routes here, effectively the entire game. On top of, and I've said this multiple times during the show, I love any time that routing is not a simple answer to a complicated question. The way the game unfolds is in a very non-linear fashion where you have the world map and you're slowly handed these different artifacts that you can place on the world and open up new little areas. And you have to do a certain amount of those areas and certain sets of them to unlock different worlds within that. So they've also had to route out what are the best little artifact dungeons or mini dungeons that they need to go to in order to reach each of these 3 endings. I love Legend of Mana. Game looked gorgeous in 99. It looks a little bit better with the modern remaster. And if you're just a fan of gorgeous RPGs, you're going to get the whole package right here. All 3 runs going to be very cool.
Now, as we move from high fidelity visuals for the air, we go into a bit of an unorthodox pick. Spike, you want to talk a little bit about Radical Dreamers here?
Yeah, this is an interesting one in that when I went to go do research on this is the first time I'd ever watched any part of this run. Despite that, Radical Dreamers is effectively I shouldn't say the beta version, but this is was the follow-up to Chrono Trigger on not the Super Nintendo, but the Satellaview system that kind of, I guess, the I don't know, the Sega CD or the 32X of the Super Nintendo in a lot of ways, and eventually inspired Chrono Cross after that. And effectively, if you're familiar with Chrono Cross, it is the kind of first chapter of that game, done in like a very like visual novel style. And watching through it, you would think it'd just be a bunch of text, and there is a bunch of text, but like the visual presentation of this game is actually gorgeous. All the different stuff they do with the artwork, the still images of the different enemies and NPCs that you run into, just moving around the castle. Kind of if you are a Chrono Cross fan, I think you owe it to yourself to watch. It's a short run, 1 hour. Make sure you check it out, being run by Isela. And yeah, I'm one of those, my butt's going to be in the seat for it to see what that is going to turn into, as someone who just wants to see what were the early visions of what some of the main characters like Surge and Kid look like, and what the enemy Lynx looks like at the top of Viper Manor. Yeah, I think it'll be great.
And speaking of Chrono Cross,
and then I'll take on this one right here. Spoilers, if you're just a Chrono fan, the whole series has done this event. Every last bit of it is being showcased here at RPG Limit Break. And what better that way than with the double world record holder in Mr. Super Handy. I've gotten to communicate a lot with Handy over the years with the Radical Dreamers remastered edition that came out. This being actually the original PS1 version. And I believe this is the chunkiest run in this marathon. Obviously, Evil Ash and I got to run this 9 years ago at RPG Limit Break 2016. One of my favorite moments as a speedrunner, and that's because I really do think Chrono Cross is just a fantastic 10 out of 10 video game and lends itself super, super well to speedrunning within it. There's effectively no grinding within the run, and no fight is like any other. No fight has a simple solution to it. All the stuff you have to do with managing your stamina, whether you're going for light attacks, medium attacks, heavy attacks, tech within that to buffer more heavy attacks out if needed, the elements grid system that comes from that, a cast of 42 characters that they have to route through to say which ones do we need to go out of our way to collect to speed up different segments of the run. Speaking of which, there's 11 or 12 crucial characters to this run in this 7-hour time slot, where there's not one character that just kind of steamrolls the whole game. Depending on what chapter of the game you're in, you have to use a different set of characters and use a completely different build to force your way through the HP of all the different bosses. Obviously, if I'm a runner of this game, I could talk for hours about it, but beyond everything else, it is a super, super good boss rush style speedrun. 50 awesome boss fights here, and one of the greatest gaming OSTs of all time here in Chrono Cross. There is not a single track that misses on this thing. Maybe the default battle music, but we never hear that. Make sure to check out Chrono Cross, and Super Handy is going to kill it, my man.
It is funny that arguably the weakest song in the soundtrack is the basic battle theme, but like, oh my god, I can listen to Prisoners of Fate for just hours. Like, I mean, like, don't take Spike's word for it. As somebody who has not played Chrono Cross, I believe the fight where you get, was it like the Excalibur 2 equivalent, or the like really OP sword?
Yeah, the like, Master Mune. Yeah.
And you use like Darcy in a really like unique and novel way to like beat basically what's, I believe, like a super boss almost, like way earlier than
someone you're not supposed to beat. Yeah, at effectively a low level, the way it turns out. The way you can sort of manipulate their attacks to your will to get a super weapon that you're not supposed to have that early in the game to help carry you through the last few hours.
And it doesn't even like, you know, like it doesn't trivialize the rest of the game either. Like the rest of the game still has a lot of things. It just makes the rest of the game like tolerable. It's a really cool run.
Yeah, please don't let the 7-hour time slot attached to it scare you off. Handy is also a very, very entertaining guy and will give great commentary the whole time. I hope he has someone else talking with him for those 7 hours, because that is a lot of hydrating he'll need to do. But yeah, it's
Not,
gonna be great.
not to inflate Spike's ego, but the run from 2016 is still one of my favorites from Limit Breaks Past. It was what got me to play the game. And I put on, like, when I first got my driver's license in like 2018, I wanted to kind of go on like an hour one way, hour back kind of road trip to just kind of show like, hey, I can handle myself with a vehicle. I just put on the Chrono Cross soundtrack the entire time.
Oh,
I didn't skip
yeah.
a single song except for the battle theme.
Dude, it really is bad. Can we just all listen? We've been
It's not great.
gushing about the
I don't think-
schedule. That music is bad. Just
rest
one.
Song,
They must
song,
have had
song,
someone else.
that
make
song.
I don't know.
Not necessarily. Yeah, just does the rest of it, then just you know what? You can take this one. I don't really need to.
The intern got that one. Dude, no, I have unironically had multiple 13-hour car drives where that's been the soundtrack I've put on. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Going
-1.
But going into maybe the most famous RPG in history,
Yup.
coming off of one of the greatest soundtracks, we go into one of the most famous soundtracks and RPGs in general. It's Skyrim.
The
Indeed.
Donkey Kong 64 of RPG.
That's a very interesting way of describing it, Spike. I mean, it's certainly as
The glitch
broken as
category.
Donkey Kong 64, I would say.
Uh-huh.
But
Yes.
anyway, we've got Skyrim, which I hope most people are familiar with. I will admit
heard
to
of it.
having I will admit to having never played it. Generally because it's not really my sort of thing. It's a bit big and a bit broken. But it's appeared a few times before at Limit Break, a couple of times before. But this time we have the fantastic musical Daredevil going to be showing off the glitchless main quest category. So
Real quick aside, since we have
Yeah.
the runner and category name messed up, something in Skyrim had to be glitched. So if it wasn't the run, it's gonna be our slides. And that
I
is
will
my excuse.
pretend that I did that intentionally, but
I've only just seen that, but that's very, very appropriate for Skyrim. But interestingly enough, that you mentioned we've got a glitched up category here. Musical Daredevil is not going to be glitching Skyrim. You can actually complete this game without
Is that
glitches.
possible?
I know, it's shocking, isn't it, really? Because when you think of Skyrim, you think of all your crazy skips and your shenanigans and all your horse shenanigans, but nope. This time, we're going to go fast, but we're not going to break the game somehow.
what happens
Fast
if you
but
accidentally
respectful.
glitch?
Well, it is glitchless. Whether or not we'll see if the definition holds up by the end of the run, but this time we're going to show off some fantastic speed tech going through the game. And the advantage of doing it this way is that hopefully it'll be a bit of a trip down memory lane for a lot of people who have played this game in the past. Because with the glitched run, you tend not to see an awful lot of it. Whereas this time you will catch the main story beats as we're going through. It's going to be a fantastic ride, this one, but without the horse tilting. So apologies for those who missed the horse through the walls. But yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Musical Daredevil, always good as well. Going to be really, really good. It's a classic, and it's nice to see a slightly different take on it, because certainly the runs I remember of this game are your incredibly glitch runs. So this is really nice to see what else the game has got to offer.
Exactly. Moving on to our next game here, we're going back into the less popular but still cult fan base kinds of consoles, and we have Newtopia, which was always what was meant to be there in this title screen. So Newtopia, the game that, as we have said many times, inspired every game ever that came after it. Very important, quintessential game for the TurboGrafx 16.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, we have two of the most important, influential games of all time back to back. Skyrim inspired millions of knockoffs and copycat games, and is still the template for the modern RPG, I would say. And then you have Newtopia, which is the template for all video games, of course, as is well known. So I mean, this is Vonnie at his absolute best. Vonnie playing a game that he's very passionate about, has a great time playing, and doing a new category. So. I'm not as familiar with Newtopia, but from what I understand, no Fire Wand is almost like trying to play like a Zelda game without a hook shot or whatever. Like, you're taking away like the best, most important item for the speedrun normally, and you're saying, If I can't use that, how do I actually beat the video game quickly? And it'll be really interesting to see. I'm excited to see Vonnie. And the cool thing about this is it shows off parts of Newtopia that you don't see in the normal speedrun, and you do things in a different way. And again, it's going to be, Vonnie and people making fun of Vonnie for about an hour. And I mean, how bad could that possibly be, right?
No, Vonnie's a delight. Genuinely one of our darlings, both amongst the staff now that he's been part of our hosting department, but also just genuinely wonderful character, with a massive heart to boot. So, looking forward to that, seeing him run, this game that he's been very, very passionate about, and it was a game that I remember when we took to Limit Break 2019 and another marathon that I was also on the games committee for. I was like, I really enjoy the energy that he puts on for these kinds of performances. Our next game here, we have Star Ocean First Departure R. So this is a remaster of a remake of a Super Nintendo game that was kind of way ahead of its time in a lot of ways. There was a bunch of voice acting to it. The combat was surprisingly in depth for things. If you never played the original Star Ocean, it was kind of an offshoot of several of the people who made Tales of Fantasia, and that was already pretty cutting edge for Super Nintendo. So this is just even further onto that. But this was the remake that they made for the PSP that later got a full-on remaster in 2019 and kind of completed the Star Ocean set. We've had 2 last year, which was Gearless's first run at Limit Break after he'd been submitting to literally every Limit Break since. So it's cool to see him get Star Ocean back to back. First getting 2 last year with its remake, and then now First Departure R, which was originally going to be in Limit Break 2020, I believe, and then just hadn't been resubmitted since, after everything that prevented that marathon from unfortunately happening. So we're going to be running on Switch for about a 3-hour estimate. I do have one little clip here. This is one of my favorite types of RPG tricks that you see here. So you just fight this giant enemy with very underleveled characters. So this is halfway through the run, and his party I think is level 9 or something like that. And just first of all, just exploiting this game's kind of equipment and item system. Yeah, you just absolutely one shot here, leaving a character in the background to spam Phoenix Downs to make sure that he's able to continually get off the fight. And then he's gonna finish off this giant here, and then watch the HP of his characters, the max HP.
Real quick note, this game is gorgeous for a remake. It's so cool the way they implemented the 2D sprites with the 3D model, the 3D areas.
Oh, wow.
Those HP just multiplies by 14 times. It's just one of those, you were not supposed to beat this at this level. I believe you go in with a couple level 30 characters, but then these 2 are at the lowest level possible, and you just shoot up. And it's one of my favorite types of RPG strats. There's another one you see in Suikoden, for example, with how level scaling works. I remember looking into bits and pieces of this route and just seeing this game has a ton of stat parameters that you put into. So the routing for this game is surprisingly complicated, despite how combat is often just hearing characters just shout the same voice line fairly regularly. There's some really interesting tech to it, and it's one of the better Motoi Sakuraba soundtracks as well. So really interesting game. I'm really happy for Gearless to be able to get to run back-to-back Limit Breaks after we've been trying for quite a long time. So to recap here, we have our second half of the day is Legend of Mana Remastered, all the main storylines, into back-to-back Chrono games, first Radical Dreamers, and then finally Chrono Cross itself at 7 hours. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the glitchless main quest, as opposed to the 40-minute glitched category. The Legend of Newtopia by Vanivan. And then finally Star Ocean First Departure R by Gearless Robots. So now on to Friday, and we have quite a packed day here. Starting off here with a franchise that I'm a little surprised we had never seen in the main marathon. But this is it's quite a word salad name. Toho Shoujo Tale of Beautiful Memories, Super Toho RPG. The key words to know there are Super Toho RPG.
Yeah.
So the thing about the Toho series is it's a series starring all these like, cutesy girls, which are either like shrine maidens or ghosts. This is Yomu, she's a ghost. They're all goofy, they're all silly. The games don't take themselves super seriously. And it is an IP that like has it's an IP that's just like world famous in like the internet circles, because the creator of the franchise basically is pretty loose with the license. So it's very common for people to just kind of make games with Toho characters and then just put them out on the internet or even sell them at like conventions. And so there has been a Toho game of basically every franchise you can think of. Like there's Mega Man X, like there's a Toho game around those. There's Castlevanias, like there's all kinds of Castlevanias.
Yeah.
Etrian Odyssey, Earthbound, Ys. And in this case, we have one that is very much themed around Super Mario RPG. It is an isometric RPG with like that kind of isometric platforming angle to it. And it's also Claude, who is one of the most influential people in the running history of the Super Mario RPG. Like he's done a lot of the work on the route of that game. So this caught my attention when I saw it submitted. The category being New Game Plus. So all New Game Plus really enables is like cutscene skip and the ability to remove Reimu, the main girl, from your party. So it changes up the routing a little bit, but it's still a like fairly standard, start from the beginning type run, just with some nice little quality of life things that make the run a little faster and more diverse. So Spike being a one thing I should mention, this game does have a Geno Whirl equivalent where you time a press and you get 9999 damage.
Oh, let's go. It truly is inspired.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Super Mario RPG, literally one of my favorite games of all time. And it's Claude, who obviously, is also someone who probably loves Super Mario RPG quite a bit. You're telling me you can give me some like really cool turn-based RPG with some genuinely difficult platforming that you have to kind of mix that with the whole time, all in a little 2-hour package? Dude, sign me up. As the start to this little, I'm just going to call it the boys block. Claude into Countdown into Clear Tonic. All right, let's go, dude.
Yeah, it's a Countdown. I believe Countdown was also a Super Mario RPG runner.
Oh, yep.
And he's also going to be showing off one of the classics of the SNES, this being Trials of Mana is what this game is now known as. For the longest time, it was called Seiken Densetsu 3. Mm-hmm. This is the original SNES game, so not the, or Super Famicom game even. So not the remake, but it's quite a tricky little run. We haven't had this run in any form in the main marathon, like including the remix, since 2016. And I believe a fair bit of it has changed. Like, I remember checking into his stream and just seeing like some of the tech for this run that was really interesting though. Like, there's like a stutter stepping to bypass encounter triggers, and the end of the game casually, you want to be in your like level in like around level 50. He beats the game around level 30 in the speed run.
Wow.
So one of those like, how can you like beat this game as fast as possible with absolute minimum number of resources, because you have limits on like the number of items you can get, so you can't just like chug. You need to know what you're doing. So I'm looking forward to this. This was that really cool SNES era Square where they were just like really ambitious with their games. Like that's how you get stuff like Seiken Densetsu 3, Live Alive, Treasure of the Rudras, which I'm hoping we get a remake for. We got Live Alive, like that would be awesome. I don't know that that's gonna happen, but fingers crossed. Square in the like mid 90s had so many cool games we just never got. And thankfully we finally did get this one, both in its SNES version when we got the Mana collection, and then a full-blown remake in Unreal Engine.
Yeah, this is pretty commonly considered. Obviously, like I'm pretty SNES pilled right now with me doing my challenge and everything. And second Densetsu 3 is like probably up there with like the Terranigmas of most requested. What if you just added this Super Famicom game? So it's really, really cool. We got Countdown here doing, effectively what that game is. Like I said, it is the Super Famicom version we're doing. It just changed the Trials of Mana. Yep.
Yeah, it's like it was the sequel, basically the sequel to Secret of Mana, which itself was a sequel to Adventure of Mana, which was on the Game Boy. But it was it was like really interesting that you had like 6 playable characters that each had kind of their own scenario. Granted, they kind of overlap, and he's doing the Archdemon scenario, which I can't remember which of the characters it was that does the Archdemon story, but it's like there's 3 different routes of the game depending on which you select as your first character. So that's going to be interesting. The routing of this game is really interesting to me every time I look into it. And then finally rounding off, as Spike alluded to, the block of the boys, Clear Tonic, RPG Limit Break staple, especially in the earlier days. He ran Dragon Quest III and Dragon Warrior Monsters 2. Here we're going back to Dragon Warrior Monsters 1, which is now debuting in the marathon. The category does say any percent. There is manips to this game, from what I can understand. Tonic is actually doing a pretty much manipulous category, which means quite a bit because this game has randomized dungeon formats. And the 3.5 hour estimate has me interested because this game, a lot of the structure is very bare bones of get monsters, breed monsters to make stronger monsters, send those monsters into kind of like a gauntlet tournament. And there's a ton of these tournaments. It's a fairly simple game, but how you get through those tournaments, how you get monsters that are capable of consistently getting through that, especially when dungeons are procedurally generated, so there's different access to resources, has me really intrigued with this run. So, and then Tonic's just been kind of a champion of the Dragon Quest series for a long time, so he's definitely a very good representative and kind of flag bearer for the franchise at Limit Break alongside a few others. So we got our next run here. Going off of another big Square franchise.
This one's decently sized, This one definitely doesn't have a gazillion people playing it at any given moment or anything like that.
We had 10 runners. We
big game.
We had 10 runners for this. We were not fitting them all on the slide.
Yeah. A little bit of some detail on how the sausage is made. I did all the pictures for the slides and filled out the stuff for the actual individual games. I saw there were 10 runners for this one. I said, I'm sorry, everyone in this is lovely. I am not typing in every single individual name.
By the village.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say there's. I always look at whenever we do one of these speedrunning marathons, any of these RPG Limit, GDQ, yada yada, and I always say what is. I'm not saying what's going to be the best run of the marathon or anything, but what is the run that almost defines the marathon? You take a double take of the schedule, they're doing that. Bubsy is going to show up and do something blindfolded or something. They're doing Final Fantasy 14 EX Boss Rush. Now, I've never played 14, but I obviously know how massive this game is. And the schedule, the column to show the runner names had to get extended an extra 5 times to show how many people are doing this. What is this?
Okay, so when you do EX bosses in Final Fantasy 14, it is an 8-person coordinated team thing. You have to get 8 players in a party, and then you kind of you say, okay, I want to do this fight, and then you kind of go through the thing and you do the fight. This is closer to a showcase type of thing in a really fun and very weird way. So they're going to be trying to beat as many of the EX bosses as they can over 2 hours, but this honestly has a lot of similar DNA to almost like a crowd control. You're going to have the ability to mess with the party. You're going to be able to say, let's take away all of your healers and see how you handle this boss without a healer. What if we just scramble everybody's jobs and now everybody that was a DPS is now a tank and everybody that was a tank is now a DPS?
Oh.
And they're going to have to be sorting this out on the fly, which you have 8 people that are trying to coordinate things. That's going to lead to some shenanigans and some people yelling at each other, and I'm sure very interesting, fun times. And I'm excited for this because, like, as somebody who did not play Final Fantasy XIV until 2020, this game is really, really good. I know that sounds shocking, Final Fantasy game being good, but like it's a blast to play. I think that we're gonna have really good commentary, people explaining what they're doing, and like if you think of it less as as a speed run and more as this like really cool coordinated, like it's almost like a dance in a way. Like it really is. You have to hit your DPS triggers, but like, okay, we need to all be outside of the circle here. We need this person to take this hit over here while we take care of these. We're going to spawn in a bunch of ads right here. We're going to take all the ads out. It really is a cool, coordinated effort. I'm really excited to see how this run is done.
Reminder, by the way, we're still taking applications for stage tech volunteers.
Gee, I was going to say.
So if you're worried about, I will say, if you're worried about watching this, we're only going to have one capture feed because you can see everybody playing at the same time. And 4 runners are going to be on site and 4 runners are going to be off site. It's a really interesting, or like, I don't know if off site is necessarily the word, but they will be playing from not the stage, is my understanding. They might be playing, like from the practice room or something. But
I want to point out the practice rooms have the game installed. Practice room PCs. People have been putting this game on there for years.
Yeah, again, absolutely incredible video game. This run is, like I said, it's got a lot of crowd control DNA. It's got some, like, fun stream times DNA. It's just going to be a lot of fun. I would expect this to be one of the runs of the event.
Indeed.
More so, like, the good runs, like, the runs of the event in the way of, like, this is going to be one people remember and not runs of the event as in, like, a, one of the runs of all time context.
Yeah. This is going to be a train wreck. My God.
Following on from what Spike was saying there, again, the sort of coordination required for that, and it's going to be really, 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 really good. This is a fantastic game as a single player experience. That alone, obviously, is an MMO, and this to see the coordination is going to be really, really cool. It's a fun run. This.
And massive shouts to RPG Limit Break and the Games Committee for having the confidence. We can do something like this. We can house a run like this right now. He's got a question, everybody, have we reached that point? Let's make it happen, man. Let's change things. Let's go.
So going on to our next game here, a bit of a peculiar point of discussion for this marathon concerning the very question of what is and isn't an RPG. Because here we have one of the most influential games on the entire RPG genre, The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening.
We actually got to see it this time. It's happening. First time in 10 years.
Yeah, so Zelda has been offered many times to Limit Break, and it's kind of been like a question of like, would they take it? And they've never said no. They've never said that we would rule, Zelda out. And like people have offered it, kind of off and on here for years. So now they're just, they're taking, this is our lone Zelda for the event. It is a series that needs no introduction in terms of popularity. And that's putting it mildly. But, I mean, I basically said, when I did my research on my Bad RPGs panel years ago, I kind of had to look into the history of RPGs itself. And, like, the original Legend of Zelda was so big for action RPGs, it almost immediately rendered every game before it obsolete. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's the kind of game we're talking in terms of influence here that just cannot go overstated. And here we have LADX, which is, the remake of Link's Awakening that was just made for the Game Boy Color. We're doing a glitchless run of it. It's going to be interesting to see, I think.
Link's Awakening.
Let me add in. I love Geyer. Geyer's commentary is incredible. Like, this is going to be so much fun to listen to, just based on that alone, let alone the fact of it's obviously one of the greatest video game series of all time. honestly one of the biggest media franchise. Like, there are no bad Zeldas, like, period. And then on top of that, this
Wand
is
of
such a
Ganon.
huge game. It's a big step for the marathon too. I'm curious because I don't know the implications of what this means going forward, but like, I mean, it's kind of an interesting signal that maybe we will be seeing a bit of some diversity on some stuff that we didn't know we would see this. So I'm really excited for this and kind of like those broader implications as well. But like the run itself is great too. It's Link's Awakening DX. Like it's a good video game and a good speed run.
Yeah. 2025, we're having the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. That's an RPG. 2026, Madden 07 for the GameCube. That's an RPG too. We're gonna expand our horizons. Link's Awakening is such a fantastic Zelda game within that we talk about as the franchise, but Link's Awakening is just a super fun speedrun to watch. We throw out the buzzword fast-paced all the time, but really the rate that you are clearing rooms in Link's Awakening DX is pretty bonkers to watch. So even in a glitchless format, all that in an hour 45, go through all of Koholint Island, and within 2 hours, we'll all be crying by the end of the run. It'll be great. So yeah, like I say, Jair's going to do a wonderful job, and glad to finally see the elfin boy with the green hat in an RPG limit break. I think this is a really good move going forward.
Yeah, we've been joking for years of all the Zelda likes, so here you go, Legend of Zelda.
We've kind of covered it, but honestly, this is one of these games that for me strikes me as incredibly historically significant, and it's really, really up there in terms of its historical significance. And again, it's fantastic to see it showcased at Limit Break. And it's personally, it's a game again I've never played, but a game I've got a lot of time for, and I've seen the speed run multiple times. And it's always a pleasure. And as Spike has rightly pointed out, Jair always does an amazing job. So it should be absolute cracking. Really looking forward to it.
And then concluding the day, we have one of the other greats of 2024, and just a very darling series to me personally. We have Yakuza, aka Like a Dragon 8, or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, as it has been localized, because they have started to remove the Yakuza name due to more so like story reasons. Like there's been a lot of shifts in how the series kind of approaches things. And Like a Dragon is an approximation of what the series' name is in Japanese, which is Yuga Gotoku. But this was the sequel, the more direct sequel to Yakuza Like a Dragon, the first turn-based RPG in the series, starring Ichiban Kasuga, one of my favorite characters in any video game ever. Absolute delight. So back in 2022, we had Frub run the game like 3 times for the marathon. But he and the runner for this run here, Mechanalist Tom, they were both trading records back and forth for quite a while, and it was a really competitive kind of thing, but in a very friendly competition kind of way. Tom has been working with another run. His name's 2 letters. I'm completely blanking on it, but the 2 of them have been working on the run quite a bit recently. And TJ, okay, that was it. They've been working on this run quite a bit recently, and sorry, I'm trying to juggle 7 different tabs here to make sure I have everything set up, but I was losing my place there for a second. And this run has come down quite a bit. It is still substantially longer than Yakuza Like a Dragon was, but it has a lot of the classic Yakuza speedrun, Like a Dragon speedrun goodness. It's very, got quite a bit of interesting routing, especially because they've done a little bit more with the actual, RPG mechanics and engine to the game. I actually did ask Tom to show me a few things from this game, and so I have 3 clips here. They're all fairly short, so it's about the length of one full clip here. So this is one of the early fights that kind of shows off kind of the nature of the arena, because it's a thug fight here, and he's going to do a special here that's going to knock one guy, and he's going to ram into the 3 guys behind him like a bowling pin, and that's just going to take out the guys behind it. And then he's going to wander around to this guy, knock him into this other guy, and that takes out 2 guys. And then finally, he's got a special where he just throws a baseball and finishes this guy. And that's just the kind of routing that plays a little bit into the shenanigans of the Like a Dragon series. That's just one of the earlier fights. Later on, the fights become a little more intricate with like stat buffs and use of summons. And if you know anything about this series, the game has quite a lot of side stories. So here's one of the mini games for the sides, or like one of the side stories. This is just a funny cutscene. I love this. I don't know if it's like coming through on my end.
What the?
It's just,
Oh no!
it's just it's so good. It's just dancing on the beach, and that's how you get the summon. And then finally, because I apologize, yeah, the clip was probably at pretty low frame rate there. And then also, you fight against a boss who is modeled after the actual IRL actor Danny Trejo.
That subtitle on DLC, by the way, is
Yes. It describes exactly what it is. You literally throw Danny Trejo into an ocean full of sharks. I apologize if the frame rate on that was coming in real bad. But yeah, that's just the kind of shenanigans you get with the Like a Dragon series.
This is like on my list of why have I not played these games yet. Every time I see them, like they just look incredible in every way. Random aside, by the way, shoutouts to the GDQ badge that had Ichiban on it. Everybody thought they just threw Spike Vegeta on the GDQ badge.
Dude, everybody thought they just made me a mascot, dude. I was like, no.
Have that bad.
It's
I do.
dude, what do you want from me?
GK's gonna get it, but that was like one of those, because I didn't get it at first either. I was like, oh, that's kind of that was a decision. They're gonna put Spike on the badge. Huh.
The way I was, because I got to play Yakuza 0 like a year ago on stream, and I'm a big fan of Shenmue for the Dreamcast, which I think these games little bit inspired from. It's like they took Shenmue and they were like, let's also make it a fun video game with absolutely ridiculous stuff going. Everyone, I mean, look at it. It's the spinning image, right?
I think he's even holding like a microphone too, if I remember correctly. Like he's literally
dude. Like I don't blame people
because he's supposed to be doing
really
karaoke, but it's like
I get it, right?
Like yeah, I think he's supposed to be doing karaoke, but again, like Spike does so much hosting and the content stuff for GDQ that it just looks like that. Before we move on, by the way, Chika, I gotta ask a question for you. What time is it?
My time is 4:13.
No. Come on. What time is it?
It is time. It is time to call.
A friend.
I summon you.
The animations are so over the top.
They're so good.
I love the
kinda
lore
sad how
of
many-
why it is what it is too. I'm sad that you
kinda
probably
sad you
get
skipped
most
so
of
many
them.
of them.
But, like the if you don't know the lore for why they turned Yakuza from being this weird beat 'em up, knock up of Shenmue to being the turn-based thing, he is so obsessed with Dragon Quest III that he just visualizes combat internally as being a turn-based game. Hence why the games are turn-based. It's so perfect. I love it.
This was something like I think originally like an April Fool's Day thing that turned into like, what if we actually? And then they just consulted like some of the Persona team at Sega, and we're just like, hey, how do we make a JRPG? And credits where credits due. There's like, it's carried a lot by its charm. They got a lot right on the first go.
Yeah.
So, recapping the rest of our day here, we have Toho Shoujo Tale of Beautiful Memories, which we just affectionately call Super Toho RPG, run by Claude. We have Trials of Mana, or Seiken Densetsu 3, which will be the Archdemon story done by Countdown. Dragon Warrior Monsters, the 80% category by Clear Tonic. Final Fantasy XIV's EX Boss Rush for 2 hours, starring all of these wonderful people I have crammed into this single box on the screen here. We have Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX, Glitchless by Geyer, and then finally closing out the night into the morning after with Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth by Mechanalyst Tom. So
That leaves us with our final day.
Final day.
RPG Limit Break 2025.
and we got 5 runs for you. So this is kind of a short one in terms of the discussion, but nonetheless very significant. So our final remote run of the event, run by Bomb Bomb, one of the Kingdom Hearts games that we've never had. This was understandably I think this was like something of a transitionary in between in one of the collections between all of the various different releases of Kingdom Hearts 2 and all the DS and PSP and other interquel games, and then finally Kingdom Hearts 3. So I don't believe we've actually had 0.2 in here, but we have the defeating Phantom Zodiac Aqua beginner boss run by Bomb Bomb. Side note, genuinely one of the sweetest people I've ever interacted with in the speedrun community. I'll be bringing that to you in the evening at a 55-minute estimate. So, Spike, I believe you being one of our resident Kingdom Hearts people, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, like you say, this is about unironically like the 9th game in between Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3, where they were like, we have the engine. This is what KH3 is eventually going to be. So the game is absolutely gorgeous to move through. There's a focus on the Aqua post Birth by Sleep story. I don't know why I'm trying to explain the Kingdom Hearts timeline. It's worse than the Zelda timeline. But regardless, the game looks gorgeous. Aqua comes packed with, she is a heavy mage user. So you're going to be seeing like fire and blizzard and all that stuff constantly all over the place. She does a lot of flippy doos. So movement wise, the run is also cool. And specifically the category again that we're running here is the defeat Phantom Zodiac Aqua, which is the super boss of this game. So it's moving through the any percent part of the run, and then the second half of this run is collecting all the doohickeys that you need in order to get to Phantom Zodiac Aqua, kind of the final copy version of her, and taking her down. And I just think, I'm a fan. I do a lot of like Kingdom Hearts randomizers and whatnot. I love categories that end on super bosses. Like, no, we fighting the boss of this one. So yeah, 55 minutes. This is going to be a really, really good short package for Kingdom Hearts speedrunning, and one that is gorgeous to look at the entire time. Great way to kick off the last day of RPG Limit Break.
Yep. And then carrying on to that into one more short run. Last little game here that you probably are unlikely to have heard of, but Anomaly Collapse by Ferric Fox for a 40-minute estimate. This is in like this subcategory of indie RPGs, which follow like a roguelite kind of progression system. There's quite a few of these games. I definitely saw a lot of comparisons in the like Steam reviews for this game for games like Darkest Dungeon and Slay the Spire, but like it's just a real quick little tactical kind of game with a whole bunch of these cute little anthropomorphic animal critters fighting around. Combat moves real fast. It's got a really interesting little interface, and it's kind of like bang bang. It's like over before you know it. So it's one of those kind of neat little subcategories of like indie RPGs that we haven't seen a ton of at Limit Break, but we have been seeing a little bit more of. Ferric Fox also ran another game that was called Wilder Myth that was kind of like similar in that regard. So it's got its own kind of unique little niche within the marathon, and I always think that's really cool to see. So continuing on to our next game here, an RPG Limit Break staple. We've had this game.
Yeah.
I think this is our 4th time having this game in the marathon. But Soul Blazer, it's a great game. It was made by, I believe, a lot of the same team who originally had worked on East 3 and then eventually left to form Quintet. And yeah, this game is like, it's one of the like better, like low-key better SNES action RPGs. Also one of the weirder kind of games. It's a very like animistic kind of way of doing things. Like everything talks to you. Like the signs, the rocks, the birds, they all talk to you. Really cute game, but like really neat speed run. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on, like what's significant about this, although we've had this game a few times, first of all, this is like the latest we've had it in the marathon. It's usually been kind of fairly early on in the marathon. And then second is the runner is Dented Razor, who has the world record in both categories of this game, the Japanese and English category. And the significance behind that is to get that, you need to go through Le Hulk. Spike, if you could explain the big deal of that.
Le Hulk is one of the top 10 speedrunners pound for pound in the world. I have, again, we brought up like 5 times during this show, so I'm going through the entire Super Nintendo library. And one thing I like to do after I play a game casually is say, oh, let's go look at the speedrun, because a speedrun will never be more impressive to you than after you just suffered through the game yourself, got your butt kicked in and everything. I am like 267 games in. I have seen Le Hulk no less than like 15, 20 times now at the top of leaderboards, and that is their run. When I went through Soul Blazer, which was 200 games ago, Le Hulk still had record, and he gets these runs, and they're unbeatable for years. Like, nobody can touch them. His level of optimization is out of this world. The amount of hard work he puts in, very, very cool. So the fact that Dented Razor was able to not just become a high-level player at Soul Blazer, but take the world record in probably one of the 2 or 3 games that I would say Le Hulk cares about his record the most for. This is up there with like the Disney's Aladdins for him and whatnot. Some of the other Disney Capcom games and whatnot. This is a wild take by Dented Razor. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So very high. So you can expect very high skill. You can expect that there's going to be like just a very, very strong performance as well. And as chat has been alluding to, forever blame, ever hate when it comes
forever blame, ever hate. This game is fantastic, by the way. Everyone should go check this one out. They kind of kick off to the Quintet trilogy. It's very, very good. And in the speedrun, it's interesting to see how they optimize clearing fights and mobs of enemies in the most efficient way possible. That stays interesting from the beginning all the way to the end in a nice little hour-and-a-half package.
Dare I ask how long it took you, Spike?
Oh, to beat it? I'm gonna guess. I've got a document. I can look it up. Here, you know what? It's right here. Where's Soul Blazer at? Bam, it was like in the 60s, right? No, it was in the 70s. Was it in the 80s? Where are you? You're like right there. Soul Blazer is game number 71. Took me 9 hours, 24 minutes, and 13 seconds. So they're going to beat it about 8 hours faster than that, which thinking about how that game works, I didn't go slowly through that game. That's impressive as heck that they're going to go through it in an hour and a half. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm really psyched for that. So going on to our final 3 runs of the marathon, these are all some of the biggest name games that we have in the marathon. We're getting a sequel to last year's Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu / This time it's going to be a little different, though. Rather than just beating the game, this is Diploma. Which, if you're unfamiliar, that means catch them all. So you got to fill up that log, catch every one of those little buggers. And there's going to be 2 runners running separate versions of the game. So one with Let's Go Pikachu, one with Let's Go Eevee. And they're going to catch every single one of these little goobers and then, complete their Pokedex in 5 hours. If you've never seen one of these runs, these have kind of like marathons have tended to take like any percent, like just how fast can you beat this game? But like these are like the less glitchy catch 'em all runs, because about the only one that I've seen in marathons often is catch 'em all like blue, where you just glitch the game.
Right.
So, but this one they're going to be collaborating to make sure that they catch like the entire roster of Pokemon. Let's Go being what it is involves, Pokemon on your team get EXP by, catching. So you're able to kind of accelerate the process of like leveling up your team and evolving them. And just like, this has been one of those categories where it's like, there are catch 'em all type categories in just about every Pokemon game. So we're finally getting to see one of these at like a major marathon. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
this is such an addicting kind of run to watch. Go ahead, Ghoul.
No, I was gonna say, like, to me, the cool thing about runs like this is this gets to do everything encapsulated in what Pokemon is and why Pokemon is such a great video game franchise. Not only are we, optimizing our battles and getting through the game as quickly as possible. Not only are we, making sure our movement is as clean as possible, but we're also interfacing with the catching mechanic and making sure, hey, this is a collect. You're supposed to be collecting these guys and getting all of them and rooting out. When do I catch this? When do I get this? I imagine they're going to have to be doing trading and stuff because of the version exclusives and everything that goes along with that. So they have to interface with the trading mechanisms inside of the game. It's such a cool thing that like you just don't see very often as well. Is the like a lot of times you only see runs like this at marathons because it's the only times you get the two runners in the room able to actually do this run together like this. It should be super unique. The two versions of the run are both different because of the starters being different, and Pikachu and Eevee are both really, really strong in this because of the exclusive moves, and so that's going to change how they're playing. I as somebody who just loves Pokemon, this is like one of the coolest ways to see Pokemon done because again, you get that total Pokemon experience in a way that you just don't get in traditional speedruns.
I've also got to say that T-Pat is a fantastic runner as well. I'm sure Joker is as well, but I've seen T-Pat before Limit Break, and the commentary is always amazing. And I'm looking forward to seeing that. That will be a fascinating run to watch and to see progress and see how they put the pieces together and how they fit the puzzle, you know?
Yeah. I've gotten to work with T-Pat a lot backstage at like GDQs and whatnot, and anyone doesn't know, he is your local weatherman. He does literally a lot of stuff on camera, on screen. Yeah, shouts to up in Washington doing it. Yeah, he's just a very natural entertainer. And once again, I'm sure Joker Sleeps co-oping with T-Pat. I'm sure they're great as well. I'm sure both of them are going to kill it. And I can't wait to see their communication skills put to the test in order to catch all 150 Pokemon. Or 151. Yeah. I don't know if Mew's in this or not. But anyways.
I think you need like a special accessory for Mew. I don't know if they're going to do that. We'll see. I do know they've been submitting this category for quite a few events. So it's kind of just cool to see that finally, get in. So we'll see how that ends up working out. But yeah, that's going to be our big Pokemon representative from the marathon, and I'm excited for that. We might also have some interesting Pokemon-themed prizes this year. We're open, which I should mention, we are submitting, we have volunteer applications we've been talking about a lot of this stream. We are also accepting prizes. And, those are a big part of our event, and we appreciate anyone who submits those. It can be, handmade goods or just, really cool collectibles that you think people might be interested in.
Yeah, I was the prize coordinator for a couple of years. As somebody who's gone through the process, they really are. There's a lot of things that can make for great prizes, but one of the best things you can do for the marathon, and sometimes, is to donate an awesome prize because, if you donate money for the marathon, that's great. Obviously, that's fantastic. But sometimes that prize you donate can mean even getting more money from the event as well. So having good prizes is always something that's really exciting and really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the past few years we've had quite a lot of awesome Pokemon themed ones, so definitely check that out. And when the marathon comes around, check out the run, because that's usually when the window to donate to win a chance something like that is available. But moving on to our second to last game, our penultimate run of the marathon, Dragon Quest II HD. Okay, this is supposed to be Dragon Quest III. The other game afterwards, spoiler, we already spoiled it. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake. So got a kind of similar visual art style to Octopath Traveler in the HD 2D pixel kind of.
It looks so good.
But this is kind of the new version of this game that we're getting to experience here. And High Spirits being one of the other champions of Dragon Quest along with Tonic. Very entertaining, very jovial, enjoyable presence to watch on camera with his commentary, with stuff like Dragon Quest, which is kind of one of the series that he's known for. So I'm excited to see this one.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Apologies for the minor error on the slides. That was me. You guys can blame me for that. It's okay.
It took 60.
No, we should blame everybody. Blame everybody.
Okay.
Yes, blame everybody.
What I'm actually doing, I'm just preparing for about a year from now when 2 HD remake comes out, and High Spirits is running that in 2026. I'm just in a time machine and don't know it.
Save us 3 keystrokes.
Yeah, I'm gonna save it next year. We don't even have to swap this slide out. We'll even leave the image the same. I know it's the wrong Dragon Quest, HD game, but no, I mean, High Spirits is just one of the best entertainers that I would say in RPG speedrunning. I still remember even that first limit break, sitting there watching Lunar 2, a game that I had no attachment, no knowledge of whatsoever, and I adored being there and being a part of that run and seeing that done live, and then seeing what High Spirits has done with the Dragon Quest series and everything that kind of disseminates from that. It's been a joy to kind of watch and follow as someone who's just tangentially trying to follow the series, and High Spirits as a friend. This run is going to be incredible.
High Spirit. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, high Spirits for me, along with our final runner, who we'll see shortly, are quintessential RPG speedrunners for me. Absolutely brilliant and always entertaining, always informative. You're going to get a fantastic run, great commentary, great entertainment. Yeah, fantastic second last run of the event.
Top 75 in their sport, first ballot Hall of Famers. Absolutely.
Absolutely. DQ3, the thing I'm not exactly entirely sure how it is with the remake, but from what I've heard from my friends, they handle this one particular aspect of this game. Low-key, a surprisingly stressful game to speedrun. This game is not one of the easier RPGs out there, that's for sure. So
yeah, I mean, it's just also cool. Like, DQ3 is the game that influenced your favorite game, whether you know it or not. Like, probably, this is arguably the most influential game of all time in Japan. And
also,
Square knew that when they remade it, and they made sure to give this game a lot of love, knowing that if they got this wrong, they would never hear the end of it.
Also known as one of the most influential speed games of all time. Like, the Japanese speedrun leaderboard for Super Famicom Dragon Quest III is like Mario 64 speedrun.
Yeah.
Like the Western speedrun scene. Like that tier of big and influential. Like, you used to not be able to submit your time to the leaderboard if it was if it was longer than 4 hours. It was like that big of a board and like that prestigious.
That's so cool. I mean, I'm not making like gatekeeping like cool, but like that's how big and popular it is. That's so cool.
And finally, we have perhaps the most influential game on indie RPGs. Also, an awful lot of light. I forgot how bright it makes my camera because my light bulb's a little too dim here. Chrono Trigger. What can you say about this game?
Love this one.
Yep, it's been... I want to say the last time Chrono Trigger was in RPG Limit Break was like 6 years ago when there was the like any % race. So it's been a while since we've had Chrono Trigger in the like main RPG Limit Break marathon, and I mean, it's one of the most beloved games of all time. One of the most one of the greatest soundtracks ever. We harped on Cross's soundtrack ever, for minutes on end, but we can do that plenty here. And we're going to be doing the glitchless no manip any % with a 100% incentive, which will add about an extra hour to the marathon, where you get to show off all of those like post-game sections, or not post-game sections, but like all of those late game side stories with all of your characters. I do actually have a couple of clips that Puexel provided for me, although you won't get to see his handsome face on there. But so despite being a glitchless run, there are some interesting little bits and pieces to the run. He provided me with a couple of clips to show off here of, even though this is a glitchless run, there is still plenty of like little tricks to it. Like, there are these tiny, platforms here that you have to like time all these enemy cycles for. This is a lot harder than it might look. Just getting around the enemies in Magus's castle here, and just make sure you know exactly where to go.
Yeah, it's an underrated skill in this game of knowing exactly where every single trigger is for every different enemy. If it ever looks like, that's a weird line that Puexel's taking to get where he needs to go, it's because he's trying to avoid tiny little pixels or gigantic boxes that are triggering more enemy encounters.
Yep. So, not a glitchy run, but definitely a run that still has its share of tech, and also one of my other favorite types of boss strats, the kind where the kind where you come up with some sort of exploit to just supercharge your damage and then just wreck something. So this is like one of the late game bosses of the 100% category. So he's intentionally getting 2 of his characters killed off, making sure Magus has haste. And the more dead party members he has, the more damage that Magus's attack will do. So you saw his first hit was like 400, his second was like 1300. Now he's like critting for 3000, and he's hit with haste. So he's just going up there and whacking away at the boss, and the boss is just not hitting him. Like, just get him in a loop because you're just so fast, and the boss is too busy monologuing to you.
Yeah, so much of it also knowing exactly what to put the battle speeds for, to where sometimes you'll actually be able to effectively manipulate it. You get just more turns than your enemy. Utilization of the Berserk. I forgot if it's the Berserk ring or whatever. I think it's just called the Berserker that you can put on certain party members throughout it. That's why Magus is all red in the face right there, and he's just blitzing enemies constantly. These are like, Plexo can literally put the controller down for like 2 minutes during this. This is great. Built-in bathroom break. See you, Echo 13.
Yep. So, and that brings us to basically the end of our marathon. Chrono Trigger, just fantastic game. What can you say? This has been, I think this is only the second time that this has been closed in marathon. Kind of bookending it from all the way back in the very first Limit Break marathon, where this was a co-op 100% with Plexel. So this is his first time closing the marathon in the last 10 years. Understandable. I think he's probably shied away from being the closer spot, being that he is the head of RPG Limit Break. But I mean, what can you say? This game gets a lot of eyeballs on it. Like, people just adore this game, its characters, at various incentive options. And we are really like excited for what Limit Break 2025 has to offer.
Yeah.
As has been alluded in chat, we are across lifetime throughout Limit Break like 20,000 away from hitting 1 million raised lifetime.
Amazing.
If we're at like any pace resembling years past, we'll hit that this year. And it's been an awesome 10 years seeing this marathon grow into what it has become, and being able to do as much good as it has been in raising as much money as it has for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which has been our main charity partner for pretty much this entire time. So go ahead and just kind of give you our final little recap here of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, starting off the day with 0.2 Fragmentary Passage, defeating Phantom Zodiac Aqua, the super boss. Anomaly Collapse, one of those indie roguelite RPG titles, and then going off into a SNES classic with Soul Blazer, following that up with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, the catch 'em all category effectively. Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake by High Spirits, and then finally Chrono Trigger, glitchless any percent, no manip with an incentive to upgrade to 100%, closing off our marathon here. It'll be a great day of runs.
What
really
a
excited for the
nasty
marathon.
final day. So good.
Superb.
It's like Soul Blazer, I think, was like at like 6 or 7 in the morning local time. It's like when one of your better runs of your marathon is just, last day at that hour. It's like, that's how jam-packed the day is.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I guess I'll kick off our closing thoughts here and just say this is one of the best schedules I think they've ever put together. I think it's a really, really good showcase of 10 years of a community that has come together to raise a ton of money, in recent years for NAMI, and just showcase not just in major games, Chrono Series, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, Pokemon, but also never stopping to find those under-the-radar games, whether they're silly indie games or just games forgotten to time that we have found and said, these are great speedruns as well. Could not be more proud of this community and seeing what they've been able to do, both from a speedrunning standpoint, from a scouting standpoint, from just a communication and being kind to each other, but also coming up on $1 million for charity. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that pretty much like says it all. Like, it really is incredible seeing. Like, I believe I'm one of very select few that have been to every single limit break over the years, and it's been incredible to see the growth and the changes in those 10 years since it was, started off. Like I said, I remember the SDA thread going up for it way back in the day, and all of the excitement around it, and seeing it develop into what it is today. It's been a beautiful journey, and I'm excited to see where it continues to go from here.
Yeah, it's yeah. Sorry, Ghost, do you want to go?
I'll let you go.
Okay, cool. I have to say, it's been an absolute pleasure, first of all, to be here with everyone. I hope you've enjoyed our look at the schedule. It's been really, really good. The schedule itself is absolutely fantastic. And speaking as somebody who's relatively new to Limit Break, I've been around for a few years now, but it's always an honor and a privilege to be working with such amazing people, to be working with such amazing runners, and to be raising money for such an amazing charity. That is for me one of the key things, and it's just been an absolutely fantastic experience. And I hope everybody enjoys the event. I hope everybody also appreciates how much love and attention goes into behind the scenes from people like Bob, people like Ashen, people like the Sid, people like Vanny, all the staff behind the scenes. Everybody does the amazing job, and just to be a tiny small part of that is means a lot. So thank you so much again, folks. It's been fantastic to be here. Thank you.
Glad to have you. Glad to have all three of you here. It's kind of nice.
I didn't get to make it last year since I was in the middle of a trip. So being able to be here for this, even with the time zone discrepancies. For people that don't know, we literally are representing all four corners of the globe right now with the four of us in the call. So
yeah,
it's incredible. Go ahead, GK.
I was just gonna say, is like Ghoul's up early, Tim's up, I guess, late by his standards. And then Spike and I are we're just enjoying a nice kind of an afternoon. Just chilling
after this. It's great. Yep. Gamers, this was so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Share this. I'm honored to share the call with y'all. I'm definitely excited for the marathon itself this year. We have a lot of interesting things going on in the works behind the scenes for some additional plans that weren't showing up on the schedule here, but we're excited to show y'all. I think it'll be a good event. We're definitely excited. We're definitely excited to be raising money again for NAMI, a cause that's very near and dear to a lot of us personally. Just touch on this because we are fairly close to closing up on volunteer submissions, but volunteer submissions will be open for about another 4 more hours. So don't hesitate. Feel free to ask any of us any questions about things. And so that basically brings us. Yes.
Real quick, I also do want to say huge thanks again to Ash for sitting here for the entirety of this and doing all the tech work behind the scenes.
I'm expecting this to be like 3 hours, and we're like 3 hours and 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, we like to yap a little bit. We're
bunch of yappers in the call. What are you gonna do?
A lot of these are games that are like near and dear to us. And a lot of these games are games we hadn't heard of, but we're like, these are near and dear to somebody, or maybe they should be.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here, but we very much appreciate y'all for watching. Saw plenty of runners from the event in chat, so it's be a good opportunity to give them a follow, watch them as they kind of work on their runs or work on their other passion projects. And yep, we'll be having a couple more shows on Sundays between now and the event itself, and then RPG Limit Break once again will be this year from May 18th to May 24th. Full Sunday through Saturday week-long event. Definitely check that out.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Take care, folks. Cheerio.